Good evening. This meeting is being called to order. Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, and Calexico Financing Authority regular meeting. And it is Wednesday, February the 17th, and it's 5:35.
Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to authorization from the governor's executive orders. Some or all of the city council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference as authorized by Executive Order N-29-20 issued by Governor of California on March 17, 2020. Until further notice, there will be no public access to city council meetings. However, public participation is available in the following ways. Members of the public are encouraged to watch the meeting via live stream on communityspectrum.org/live at 6:30 p.m. or via the Calexico City Hall Facebook page. You may join us via Zoom. Information for this Zoom meeting is available on the City Council agenda. Members of the public will be able to make public comments in the following ways. Submit a public comment via email by 2 p.m. on February 17, 2021 to ggarcia@calexico.ca.gov or via fax to 760-768-2103. These comments will be read aloud during the meeting. Make public comments live via Zoom by submitting the request via Zoom chat. Persons should submit their name and section of the agenda they wish to speak on. Roll call.
Roll call.
Mayor Arola Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
Here.
Councilmember Ureña.
Here.
Councilmember Romo. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
Not for closed session.
Okay. So we will be going into closed session, and it is 5:37. This meeting is being called to order. Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successory Agency, Calexico Financing Authority. It is 6:36.
Mayor Arola Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
Here.
Councilmember Ureña.
Here.
Councilmember Romo. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Ureña, will you lead? Sure.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our mission statement. Mrs. Romo, will you lead us with that?
Thank you. Ready, begin. City of Calexico.
Mission statement.
Together we pledge to provide effective and efficient services in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community.
Okay, for innovation, Pro Tem Moreno will lead us with that.
Thank you, Mayor. Dear loving Father, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today for many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the life itself, for the measure of health as we fulfill our callings. I pray for our mayor and for our various level of city staff, for the rest of the council members, particularly for us who assemble as council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant us wisdom to govern amid this pandemic, to govern with a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, govern with justice and righteousness. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, so now to closed session announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council met in closed session on items, the items 1, 2, and 3 of this closed session agenda. We received direction, but our report will ask for taken. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We need approval of the agenda, but our city manager would like to add something.
Madam Mayor, we would request that you and the council consider adding to the agenda as an emergency item a letter addressed to Governor Newsom on behalf of the city of Calexico related to the need of additional vaccines for Imperial County. The County of Imperial Board of Supervisors has done the same, and at this time we believe it's important that the city of Calexico also take a stand on this matter. So with that in mind, you have this request in front of you.
Okay, so this will be put in an item. What item should we put in? So we put it on item 5?
No,
Oh, no.
No, it's new.
you can include it as item 11 now.
Okay. Item 11.
For the record, we'll call it 11A.
11A.
Correct.
11A, okay.
Okay, moving forward, we will be adding to the agenda a letter that's being sent to Governor Newsom. Regarding the urgency for additional vaccine
That is
to our
correct.
community.
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second,
To have a second?
second.
Ms. Romo.
With the item, correct?
Yes.
Mayor Adrian Fernandez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Councilmember Romo.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we have presentations. Presentation by COVID-19 Ad Hoc Committee.
Hello? Is this microphone
Will
working?
you be giving the presentation?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay.
Is this microphone working? Yes. Yes. Gabby, my computer's not working. Can I give you the website to put it up on the screen?
I'm not set up for this.
Okay, that's okay. I also have it in paper, but we'll just proceed that way. Buenas tardes. Reporte de Comité COVID. Our report from the COVID committee today is going to be relatively brief, focusing on where the committee had left off from our previous meeting, which was vaccine plan, vaccine inequality, and our advocacy efforts. The COVID committee did not meet this week. We plan to meet next week as we collect more information on the vaccine rollout. But I will present to you now the concerning background information which we have from the county, along the same lines. I'll give you the background information on what the COVID committee will meet on next week. Obviously, the COVID committee will continue to do the critical work in ensuring vaccine equity across the city of Calexico, across the county, and the state. I was going to go ahead and project the vaccine distribution numbers up on the screen, but given that the internet is not working, I'll just go ahead and go through them orally. Starting at a statewide level. Statewide, as it is mentioned in that letter, we have a big problem with vaccine equity. California, as of its most recent census demographics, we are 39.4%, close to 40% Latino of any race as a population in California. White alone, not Latino, makes up 36.5% of the population. However, statewide, once you look at the vaccine numbers about who is getting vaccinated, you have Latinos at 16% vaccination and whites at 32.7%. And this is white, not Latino. If you look at the rates at which different counties are getting the vaccines, you can see why it skews so heavy towards whites and so heavy against Black and Latino communities, who are at most risk of infection and death from COVID for multiple reasons, including essential worker status, pre-existing conditions, and other measures of poverty that drive infections and death in our Black and Latino communities. On February 12th, the county of Santa Cruz, where I went to school, posted very proudly that they were among the top 9 counties in the state for their vaccination rate. This is a vaccination rate per 100,000, so it is adjusted for population. Let's compare. You have the highest county, Mono County, vaccinating at a rate of 32,000 per 100,000. Alpine County, number 2, 24,000. Napa County, 17,000. Sierra County, 17,000. Marin County, 16. Butte County, Mendocino, San Diego, 15 to 16. Santa Cruz, 14,000. Contra Costa, Placer, Sonoma, Modoc, 13 to 14. Most of these white Northern California counties who, for the most part, have not been in the purple tier nearly as much as the Southern California counties. At that point, Imperial County had 15,800 vaccines at our disposal. 13,800 were administered. I calculated the rate with the total vaccines we had at our disposal, knowing that they were all going to be used very soon, to give the best scenario for Imperial County. What did the vaccine rate for Imperial County look like? Where all these counties go from 13 all the way to 32,000 per 100,000. Where is Imperial County? 7,624. Roughly half the vaccination rate at Santa Cruz County. That is how you get whites predominantly getting first in line to the vaccine. This is still a lowball estimate for Imperial County. It's the best scenario for Imperial County for 2 reasons. Imperial County has experienced explosive population growth in the last decade that is not yet accounted for. It will be accounted for in the 2020 census. We are still using estimates from mid-decade. I have seen some estimates that our 2020 numbers will put us closer to 220,000 people. That vaccine rate is definitely a high estimate, and it is still half of these Northern California counties. Secondly, of course, as has been discussed here, we have an added floating population in this county. We are a border economy, we are a border community, like it says in our mission statement, and we can't forget that floating population. We can't forget them because they drive our biggest economies. Agriculture, retail depend on these floating workers heavily. They need to be in good health and not dying to keep our local economy functioning. The reason they are not here, obviously, is because no one can afford Calexico rents. We have neglected affordable housing for a decade, but that is a separate issue. Calexicans that work here are U.S. nationals, typically, and have a right to the vaccine. And our economic success depends on them getting it. I'll get more into that once I get to the global status and how that affects our border status as a city and as a county. But let's go to the county numbers first. Because the county level, and this is what's not in the letter that the county has given to us, obviously we want to be on the side of the county as they argue to the state, but we can't ignore the discrimination the county is having towards Calexico. There are some numbers on that I will share. We have a layer of discrimination at a county level that is adding to the existing brutal discrimination happening at a state level that we are fighting. As we should know by now, statistically, when there is discrimination against Latinos on a county-wide level, we are almost certainly talking about that there's discrimination against Calexico to come to that conclusion, because Calexico has a much higher percentage of Latinos compared to the rest of the county. Of course, the nature of discrimination is not like you may imagine, where you have a racist administration that is deliberately not sending that vaccine. That is not the case. At a county level, we're talking more about a pre-existing lack of equity in the medical field, where Calexico has always had less medical providers. Side note, the committee is doing the legwork right now to help Dr. Estrada get his vaccine certification so we can have at least one more provider in our city to distribute these highly needed vaccines. But lack of medical providers is not an excuse, because ECRMC and Pioneers have a presence and patience in our city, but they are not sending any percentage to a local site of their vaccine allocation to Calexico. Lack of medical providers is a problem that we can solve with our efforts to address 2 things: access to transportation and access to technology. And on that note, let's divide up the work a little bit. I would cordially ask Mayor Fernandez to please urgently bring up the issue of medical transportation for vaccines to ICTC so we can tackle the transportation challenge, while the committee continues to address the technology side to make sure that registration is accessible with the county. The county itself, the Imperial County Public Health Department, is in the same situation as ECRMC and Pioneers. All county events have been held in places, I'm talking about the mass vaccination, all county mass vaccination events have been held in places that have already more medical providers, El Centro, Imperial, Brawley. The county, but the good news is the county, from its latest press release, has made clear that they have plans to deploy pods, which are portable points of distribution for vaccines, to different parts of the county for better access. We have to be very aggressive, advocating for most of those pods to come to Calexico, just like we did with testing, to make up for the deficit that the first couple of mass vaccination events left in the equity for Calexicans and Latinos across this county. So what are the numbers for the county? The county has a population, as of the mid-decade census, of 85% Latino. That's an underestimate because we can almost be certain that that's closer to 90 with the 2020 census, but let's use that favorable number for the county. The county of Imperial has vaccinated only 72% of Latinos, when we have an 85% Latino population. That is a 13-point deficit. Meanwhile, they have vaccinated 14.3% of white non-Latino population. There's another statistic that gets lost in the racial demographics, which is age and essential worker status. If you compare the statewide age statistics for who has been vaccinated versus the county of Imperial one, you can see that the county of Imperial has vaccinated almost twofold its 18 to 49% demographic versus the statewide average. That means we have so little vaccines, but so many essential workers that we don't even have enough vaccines to vaccinate enough senior citizens at a rate that the rest of the state average is doing. And that's very dangerous because vaccinating our seniors is the key to lowering mortality. And so it's hitting us in three ways: discrimination at a state level, discrimination at a county level, and no one is making up for the fact that we have so many essential workers that keep this state and this country fed. So what's the global perspective? This disease has the potential to go from a pandemic to an endemic disease. And this has an effect on a border town specifically. There's a global layer of vaccine inequality that it's going to come back to bite us specifically, and economically too, in a way that it won't bite other areas of the US just as hard. It will bite them, it will still bite them because we're in a globalized world where new strains can spread fast, but a border town is just much more vulnerable compared to a seaport or international air travel. There were two articles that recently came out that I'm going to quote. One from the Wall Street Journal on February 7th, and one from the SF Chronicle from February 15th, that has epidemiologists warning us about what it means for this disease to become endemic. I'll read you some quotes so we can get a picture. This one's from the Wall Street Journal. The ease with which coronavirus spreads, the emergence of new strains, and poor access to vaccines in large part of the world, which means specifically talking about Mexico, Africa, and all the places that won't get the vaccines until 2 years or 4 years after we will, could mean that COVID can shift from a pandemic disease to an endemic one, implying lasting modifications to personal and societal behavior, epidemiologists say. And this is just now coming back to my words, what does that mean? It means that because we're not vaccinating the world in an equitable way, our little border town is going to keep operating under COVID conditions way after the U.S. is vaccinated. That's a lasting economic disadvantage that we have to look forward to and address. I think that gives a picture, but there's this other interesting quote, for example, also from the Wall Street Journal, just to give you an idea of what companies are doing. Airlines like Lufthansa, a European airline, are restructuring to focus on short-haul flights within Europe and away from Pacific countries that have said they'll keep their borders closed for a year. Some airports are planning new vaccine passport systems to allow inoculated passengers to travel. That's the kind of thing that could become permanent in a border situation as well and have lasting implications on our economy that is so dependent from Mexicali consumption. I'll leave it there. That gives the picture. So this pandemic is going to turn endemic, has the potential to turn endemic due to inequality at a global level. That is why it's so important for us to vaccinate our floating working population. Not only because they have that right, but because it will be key to keeping new strains in check, at least for those workers. And as I will remind everyone, their health is the key to our economic stability in our existing major sectors of the economy. So what have we been doing about this? I have to commend Supervisor Escobar, who is not here with us today, is a vocal proponent of this committee, for bringing up these equity issues to the County Board of Supervisors on our behalf. That's why we have this letter in front of us. I spoke to him yesterday. Long story short, we agree this is going to take more than a united valley to get Governor Newsom's attention on this issue. On my end, I have already reached out to progressive Delano City Council members in Kern County. We need to unite Central California, Los Angeles, and progressive Democrats in the north to realize that this inequity that we're living at a state, county, and global level is going to hurt all of us. But it's going to hurt our border town economic stability the most for years to come, potentially. We're working on this, much to be done, but it's easier said than done. But it is oh so critical at this moment and for the months to come. But I think que sí se puede. We can't stay on our corner on this issue. We need to go harder. Last administrative point, the City Council has gotten message boards purchased by vote. We need to decide as a council on the usage of the message boards for COVID purposes. I would highly recommend that Wednesdays, when the COVID testing site is at the Calexico One Stop, we need to put a sign at First and Heffernan where a lot of farm workers are being dropped off, so it can signal for them to go up 2 blocks and get their COVID tests. But I leave that to your consideration, and that finalizes my report.
Thank you for your report. Moving on, announcements.
These proceedings may be viewed on the City of Calexico website at www.calexico.ca.gov the Friday following the City Council meeting. Community office hours with Mayor Adrian Fernandez will be held on the 4th Tuesday of the month from 2 to 4 p.m. Please contact the City Clerk's office at 760-768-2102 for the appointment.
Public comments.
This is the time for the public to address the City Council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. During the current state of emergency, public comments will be received in the following ways. You can submit public comments via email by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, February 17 to ggarcia@calexico.ca.gov or via fax to 760-768-2103. These comments will be read aloud during the meeting and entered into the record. To make a public comment live via Zoom, You need to submit your comment via Zoom chat. Persons should submit their name and section of the agenda they wish to speak on, such as public comments, or state the agenda number. Any comments received during or after the meeting will be distributed to the City Council and retained for the official record. City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. I have several comments, Madam Mayor. Dear Calexico City Council members, it was quite evident during the last council meeting to find that Ms. Romo was again using her laptop during the entire council meeting like she has been since her appointment to the Calexico City Council. I am also taken back to find that Raul is using his cell phone during each council meeting when important matters need to be discussed. Are both Romo and Raul communicating between themselves during the council meeting, or are they communicating with those in Calexico and or to cronies outside of Imperial County? I do understand if there is an urgent message or emergency that needs to be addressed. However, the use of laptops and cell phones should be reserved outside council meetings. Overall, I personally felt disrespected and quite humiliated with Raul using his cell phone and Romo using her laptop. Raul and Romo need to know they must stop using their electronics during each council meeting. The entire Calexico community and elected city council members would be thankful when this is done. Thank you, Jesus Núñez. Honorable Mayor and council members and Calexicans, it has only been a short time since the newly elected council members began their meeting at the Calexico City Hall. What I am concerned about is that there appears to be two opposing groups. Two groups, yes, and they have not been working in unison as a united front for the people of Calexico. I have seen Mr. Ureña verbally attacking each council member, Gloria Romo excluded. This is short of respect and humility. There has been much dissension, conflicts, lack of collaboration, and false accusations, which Mr. Ureña continues to harp on. Mr. Ureña continues to gabble and insist, and I have seen how demanding and selfish he is during each council meeting. It appears that he wants to control each meeting, and he tends to derail the meetings away from the agenda. Twice the council meetings ended at 9:30. Why? Because Mr. Ureña enlightens himself to read what seems to be more than one page, which takes away much time needed to review the agenda. Recently, Mr. Ureña made an inappropriate remark to Mr. Garcia, calling him racist, and questioned whether Mr. Garcia can be trusted. Mr. Ureña, what is to be accomplished by taking time away from the agenda and making false and demeaning remarks to your fellow council members? Your whole campaign about working collaboratively with all council personnel does not hold true for the people of Calexico. It has become a joke, and that must stop. Stop the bickering and insults. Juan Estrada, Calexico. Dear Calexico City Council, Mr. Ureña, you got some nerve accusing our mayor of selling the city land to our federal government. It takes 3 council votes for it to be approved, which was never submitted. And yet you have the gall to put tents out there without going through the body of the council to vote on it. In other words, it's not your choice to do so. For your information, you should go through the proper channels. You are not the jury nor judge. Do yourself a favor and get off your high horse and do something positive for Calexico, concerned citizen of Calexico. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. We have been employees of the City of Calexico for a long time. We have been through many councils, city managers, department heads, and supervisors. We thought we had seen the last of the City Council's embarrassing behavior back in the 2013-2018 years. With this new and diverse City Council in the history of Calexico, you have proved so far is leading to being the worst. Ms. Ariola Fernandez made a mistake and committed one misdemeanor, hit and run, and one DUI crash. Yes, the possibilities of her irresponsible actions having the worst outcomes are bad. Luckily, they were not, and she took full responsibility for her actions. Yes, she is held to a higher standard, but alcoholism is a protective disease. It's like having any other illness that should not disqualify you or get you fired. It's time you move on. And like the Disney movie Frozen says, let it go. We can see Mr. Garcia and Mr. Moreno are trying to do the right things by following proper etiquette and paying attention to the citizens, city administrators, and city employees' concerns. Ms. Romo needs to get off her high horse and look at the city finances, especially now with COVID-19 pandemic, and watching her statements. She continually wants the city of Calexico to fix issues that have not been fixed because of her priorities being on the bottom of the list. Ms. Romo, us employees have taken too many pay cuts and are short-staffed. We agreed to keep our jobs and keep the city afloat. Ms. Romo, your refusal to speak English during the meetings is not right, and it looks like you are a very stubborn person by continuing to do so. Since you compare us to Mexicali, you know that the Cabildo meetings are in Spanish. They don't have an English interpreter. Mr. Ureña, we can go on forever with what we see, but we will keep it short, watching you at the council meetings through Zoom, along with the rest of the world. We can tell that you, sir, are not a team player. It appears that you have way too many personal agendas that are not the city of Calexico's responsibility. You have cost the city of Calexico more money through your protests and trying to get all this help for the farm workers and indigenous people. Our parents and uncles were all farm workers, which they made do with what they had to do to work, provide, and live. They went to El Hoyo, where the United Farm Workers had a place for them to be picked up. We know this because most of us would drive them to El Hoyo. Your displeasure with Ms. Ariola Fernandez, Mr. Moreno, and Mr. Garcia is obvious. You may be or seem to be a smart person, but we all can see your lack of experience and have not fully grown up. We applaud you for going to college and being lucky to have parents and people who support you financially and support your radical progressive ideas. Mr. Ureña, fix Calexico first, then take on immigration and open border issues. If you polled all the citizens of Calexico, you would find that less than 15% of them want open borders. You have more to say about you. We have more to say about you, but we do not want to prolong the meeting and show up to work tomorrow tired and watching your show. P.S. It is evident that Ms. Romo and Mr. Ureña are not united with the rest of the council. You both remind us of Armando Real, John Kim, and Luis Castro days. Signed, Calexico City employees who wish to remain anonymous in fear of retaliation. Bulldog investigators. It is my understanding that at times like these, COVID committee is necessary. I'm sorry, this is for item number 12, so I'll hold off on this one. And this one is for another one. Public. Okay. On behalf of my in-laws who live in Calexico, thank you to the city in moving forward with both lights and restrooms at Cordova near my family house. Along with congratulations, your hardworking staff in getting a grant for Heber Parks to build a nice park and recreation center for the youth. In speaking with my family's downtown merchants, we do not need any homeless housing in the downtown area. Family Store has been burglarized and windows have been broken. Business is bad enough, and many downtown customers not only have to pay for parking but deal with people who live downtown. Please, Mr. Ureña, concentrate on downtown security and cleanliness. Feeding people on the sidewalk and living in tents is not humane. People who work downtown are struggling financially. If you feel this is this important, please have your group take them to your nice houses. Working for a living is a struggle for many of the Calexico people. Very truly yours, Leticia Cohen, for my family in Calexico. Gilberto Manzanares. Okay, this is a different item. And that is it for the public
That's it?
comments, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I do want to share something with you and the community that are watching us tonight. As I've been able to share with you in recent days, my understanding is that some of you may have also taken part in a Zoom meeting that was facilitated by the California League of Cities pertaining to the COVID-19 relief package that is currently being discussed right now in DC. It's very important for us. Why? Because this package is considering $90 billion as revenue shortfall that municipal governments like Calexico and others in our country have experienced. One of the things that this package does is provide $65 billion for municipalities to address some of these shortfalls. One of the things that is important for us to address is that this is not only gaining a lot of traction, but it's at a point in which there are specific resources that have been identified, not only for the 500 plus cities in California, but the over 19,000 cities nationwide. Last week, the House Oversight and Reform Committee decided to move on with the first portion of this on the House side. Now it's moving to the House Budget Committee. On the Senate side, there seems to be also the consensus to move forward with this item. We anticipate that the last week of February is going to be key for this relief package, as we will note how the final vote looks. I do want to share with you that so far, based on the mock-up that has been prepared, there is an unofficial figure for the city of Calexico of $7,416,864. Right now, all this information is public. All this information can be accessed by anybody watching us right now. One of the things that I do want to share that stand out from the limitations and the guidelines that we must follow is that municipalities are not going to be held accountable to bring down the money all at once. Mm-hmm. We're going to have the discretion as to how fast we want to access that money. Mm-hmm. There is not going to be a time limit as to when we can access the money. I do want to point out that this is not to be looked at as an opportunity that's going to rescue us from the revenue loss that we've experienced, especially here in Calexico, as a result of our proximity as a border town with Mexicali and the state of Baja, but because as a border town, our local economy does rely a lot on the tourist crossings that right now are being restricted. With that in mind, I do want to share that this is being categorized as a lifeline for cities. Uh-huh. And as we know, a lifeline does have an expiration date. That's why it's going to be extremely important, if this relief package is to materialize, that we prioritize how this money should be used. But most importantly, I had a department head meeting this morning. I meet prior to the meeting with my staff. And one of the things that we discussed as a group was that this is an opportunity for us to prepare and foresee future outstanding circumstances like COVID-19 that can come and strike us again.
Yes.
So again, this is a very important item that I did want to bring up so our community can be informed, but also so we as a team can make sound decisions moving forward. The second item that I want to report on pertains to a property located at 711 Cesar Chavez Boulevard. What we know, or what we came to know as a recycling center in our city that unfortunately years back burned down, and that has resulted in several negative impacts to our city. I do want to point out that it is our due diligence to address these situations. We as a city are privileged that we have at our use the services of fire prevention services who actually play the role to mitigate these issues for the city of Calexico. What I can share with you is that the property owners have been identified because there was a legal constraint occurring in terms of the ownership group. That has been addressed. And currently, right now, I do want to report that the owner has been contacted, that they've been issued a final notice to address the situation at 711 Cesar Chavez Boulevard. And if they are not compliant with this final notice, there is going to be a bill that they would have to pay and a lien that's going to be placed in the realm of $10,000 to $30,000. And this is coming, again, from the third party that provides this service to the city of Calexico. I want to commend my code enforcement team that has taken the lead to work on this matter. And I share with you that this report that I'm sharing with you came today in the morning, specifically at 10:35. So I'm happy to report on this. I believe right now on the COVID-19 ad hoc committee report that Council Member Ureña provided us, he did make a notion of the testing bus coming to Calexico again. Today we were issued by the Imperial County Public Health Department the schedule for what they denominate week 12, which is going to be the week beginning February 22nd. Monday it's going to be in El Centro, Tuesday in Brawley, Wednesday it's going to be at the Calexico One Stop Center at 301 Heber Avenue, which is what Council Member Ureña alluded to. Then on Thursday, it's going to go to Brawley at Comité Cívico del Valle. And then it's going to come back on Friday the 26th to Calexico once again at the One Stop Center. So again, these are important things that our community can be aware of and that we as a council and as staff can disseminate with our community. Madam Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Miguel. Moving on. We do have Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, would you like to make an announcement?
Good evening, Calexico City Council, Mayor, members of the City Council, staff. I'm here just invited by your city manager to give a brief report. I hate the mess. Just to let you know what we're working on. First and foremost, like what we said during the campaign, our street lights we had street lights that were off. They've been off for years. We're working very hard at it. We've already reported everything east of Imperial Avenue, no, west of Imperial Avenue, and everything north of Highway 98. Everything has been reported. You see IID crews working. They've been fixing many of them. The ones that you haven't, that are not fixed, they have a bigger problem. We did meet this week with Council Member Romo. I presented my our Division 4 IID Energy Board member, Dr. Manuel Yanez. He's been appointed by Division 4, Manuel Yanez and Mary Salazar, which I will introduce on the next meeting. Mr. Yanez met with Councilmember Romo. Mr. Yanez has a proposal from a company that they can submit a grant for putting all LED lights in Calexico, but they get the job, they get the work, something like that. So Mr. Yanez is going to be working. If you have any questions, contact Mr. Yanez. I mean, that's the way it is. IID does fix them. If they can't replace them, they'll put LED lights. We want to report that we got 5 lights coming for Rancho Frontera. Along Rancho Frontera, you see that, it's all dark. They're going to put lights on the 5 lights that are on the American Canal, LED lights. IID did fix some of the manholes that were plugged. We have Jimmy Abadi, an appointee of us for the Water Conservation Advisory Committee. He's going to be cleaning up the retention basin once it all gets dry. We have farmers that want to help. They've helped in El Centro and Imperial. They fix up baseball fields, parks. They want to help in Calexico. Mr. Abadi has contacted our city manager, and we hope they get working on that. Something that we brought, the people from the west side brought up to us is Cloak Road. We're working on the Beach Canal. I'll give you an update on that. So the people over there said, and we hadn't noticed that the bridge on Cloak Canal doesn't have a fence. It just has a small rail. Today we were informed that they're going to put an 8-foot fence along that canal. It's just the neighborhoods are right there. We have 3 schools just a block from there, and we heard from one lady that one of her daughters wanted to commit suicide and was walking toward that site. So it's very important that we put fencing there. What's another project? Well, I think and I'm hoping that Daniel Gutierrez won't flood again. I think the valves have been installed by the city. So that's another thing that we're fixing. I want to let you know that I can't talk much about it, but because it was in closed session. There's a city in Imperial that made that requested the city IID to help them with, I can say it's the biggest regional park in the valley. Calexico needs to start working with IID, get a committee, start asking, because I know myself and Mr. Hamby, we want IID to get very involved in the community. And they have a lot of money, they have a lot of resources, so you guys have to start requesting, like this city. They're asking for I think it's an 80 acre. It's the biggest regional field that's going to be in the valley if it is approved by IID. It's in closed session, so I can't talk much. Beach Canal, I think it is the 4th presentation they give us. It's too expensive. To be honest, personally, I think it's being inflated. The price is being inflated. It's just $6 million for a little piece, for one, half a mile of canal. Yesterday, I think we gave direction to get a proposal from the private business. But anyway, like I mentioned in the meetings, even if it's $5 million, at least myself and I know one other board member will support it, because we can't put a life on a price on a life. One of the things that I do request from you is you have another representative from Calexico at IID. She hasn't said anything. I don't know what's her position on this. I think Mrs. Galindo brought it up in 2014, but I've been bringing it up every meeting, and I haven't heard from her. So it's something that you guys, the council might want to ask her what's her position, because regardless, I think if we're going to get it done, it's going to be now. Because we're hoping that this private quote comes lower. Even if it doesn't, we're going to put it for action. Discussion and action, because we need to fix that, beach canal. One of these days, one of our kids is going to go under there, and it's going to be hard to get him out of there. So we're moving on that. If you have any other issues or ideas that you want me to work on it, that's why we're here, even if they're not IID. I know that IID contact our fire chief. They have a lot of surplus for the dive team, and I think they're going to offer first, before it goes to the public, they're going to offer it to our Calexico Fire Department. The same thing we want with the Parks Department. They're going to auction a lot of trucks and equipment, and I think that it should be offered to our cities first, especially Calexico, that we are, we're not good economically. So those are the things I want to report. I'm going to be coming every month, give you an update on what we're working. But yeah, the big tamale is Beach Canal. We're working on it. Mrs. Romo sent a letter yesterday. That's something you guys also do in every meeting when they give us a presentation, for you guys to send a letter or you can speak during the issue. Every issue we have public comments.
Thank you.
So that's something that I'm going to push. And for you to lobby the other directors, because I think that if we're going to get it done, it's going to be now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Okay, moving on to City Council comments and reports of meeting attended. Mr. Pro Tem Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did, along with the Mayor Ariola Fernandez, attended a tour scheduled by Mr. Figueroa on February the 10th at the fire department, and a lot of things were brought to attention in terms of the facilities where there's need of repair, and a lot of other things we're going to be looking into. Also, I attended the California League of Cities update, where of course Mr. Figueroa had mentioned a few things of concern, and obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic and how the state is moving along with that. And today morning I was sworn in at the LAFCO, which is the Local Agency Formation Commission. I was very honored to that, and because Calexico hasn't been at the table, hasn't had a share at the table of LAFCO for at least a decade, and so I'm really looking forward to work with the LAFCO Commission. That's all.
Okay, that's all you have? Thank you. Councilman Ureña?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Buenas tardes, estimados compañeros del Cabildo. First, to clarify the intention of my comment last meeting toward Camilo regarding the Calexico One Stop. With the potential destruction of the COVID committee on the agenda, I wanted to make it very clear during that last meeting that it was the COVID committee's initiative to put that testing site near the border. But I don't want Camilo's work to be overshadowed, so let me very briefly give credit, all the credit where it's due on how that came to be. Once committee, I'll give credit to the committee where it pertains to the committee. Yes, microphone?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello? There we go. I'll start with committee credit, where it's due for them. The committee had done the legwork for getting a testing site close to the border. We had initially thought of First and Heffernan, since many farm workers are dropped off there. The entire council, if I remember correctly, opposed a border testing site, and no one volunteered to make that call to the county to even bring a bus during those dates, so I did. But credit where credit is due, because I don't want Camilo's work to be overshadowed. It was Mr. Garcia that had us move from First and Heffernan to One Stop. I have no doubt that First and Heffernan would have also been successful, but I certainly appreciate Camilo's work on getting us a cleaner site that is more central. Certainly Camilo's work on getting One Stop is a great example of collaboratively adding to the value of an existing project. Apologies for my irritation at my last comment. I thought you were trying to imply that it was your idea to go close to the border for the purposes of undermining the role of the committee. I'm unsure if that's your intention, but if I misunderstood your intention, I offer this apology to you directly. We had a transitional housing forum this Wednesday, or past Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. Roughly 24 people from the community participated in a community forum to make a plan for transitional housing. Most of the discussion was held on the very sensitive issue of where a site would be located and with what resources. There was a debate that ensued on whether the community wanted a more remote location to keep the homeless away from residents, or something closer so that they would have access to easier access to services and work opportunities for rehabilitation. Ultimately, there was consensus that it was key to keep that they be closer to services and work opportunities to make rehabilitation more likely. That's the ultimate goal of this transitional housing. We agreed that transitional housing is a preventative measure at stopping many of the systemic problems that are draining our emergency responder resources, fire, ambulance, and police to no end. A systemic issue requires a structural response, not a Band-Aid. Transitional housing reduces the drain also reduces the drain and damage to parks and public restrooms by making sure that the unhoused community has access to separate park and public restroom facilities. There was consensus that we needed to use the trailer resources that we had received. We can't start even a safe parking lot or a tent camp due to the intense summer that is rapidly approaching. We have to skip the plan for tents and cars and go straight to modulars for the most basic element of the program, which is the housing, the roof itself. There was consensus on a list of priorities. First priority, in this order. First priority, public restrooms need to be open to stem the tide of defecation on Calexico streets, not just from homeless folks, but from essential workers upon whom we depend to make sure that we eat. Number two, a farm worker resting center, which is currently in the works, needs to be the next step to address the temporary homelessness that field workers experience. Third would be temporary housing in any form, whether that's a designated park with shade and amenities. As a start, an empty building that the city is not using during the pandemic could also be a very temporary solution. But ultimately, we want to get to these communal modulars, kind of like what Neighborhood House has with their Neighborhood House Hall, where they have 3 trailers put together to make a big building. They also use, just as a fact, they use that exact same modular building as a shelter. Ultimately, we want to get to affordable housing to both prevent and have something that these people can rehabilitate into. I am researching in conjunction with Assemblyman Garcia's office what climate change monies we can bring down from the state for this purpose, housing, and for transportation, which is essential to rehabilitation and job opportunities. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with the president of an affordable housing bank in San Francisco with Councilwoman Romo to explore financing and grant options for affordable housing projects in our city. Immediately, I would ask this council to please pick up the phone, call the city of Hopeville or the city of Imperial to ask them how they were able to receive grant monies for those shiny new apartment buildings that they are building to house farm workers in their cities, so that we can also send an application. I'm sure the need is justified even more here in Calexico. 2 more topics, Road Safety Forum. I was going to share a heartbreaking image from 5th Street as I was driving by, but I'll just, because the internet's not working, I'll just go ahead and describe it. I was driving down 1st Street towards Rivera Avenue, and I saw that the neighbors, one of the community people had actually put a sign in the middle of the road that said, "Please drive slowly, there are children here." And I can tell you 5th Street, 7th Street, 2nd Street, all of those streets that connect all the way, regularly on any given day, whether it's morning commute, evening commute, lunch rush, there's people driving at 40 miles per hour through those roads, and it is very, very dangerous because people live there. Last night on Andrade, I witnessed street racers already start racing very early at around 7 to 8 p.m., and I kept hearing those engines from my house all the way until 2 a.m. On any given night, that's a reality. This is not an issue we're going to solve with more patrol. A modern city needs to solve this issue with better public transit and better road design. Better road design does not have to be expensive for modifications, kind of like what the City of El Centro has done on their main street for a more pedestrian-friendly zone. It can also be beneficial. It can also result in more efficient traffic flows. Does not have to be expensive and can result in better traffic flows, even with lower speed limits. So I'm asking as a future agenda item, and I'll repeat it once we get to that part of the agenda, that we have an item to talk about road safety in general with 2 parts. The first part is local initiatives that we can implement as a municipality. And the second part is to give direction to our representative on the Transportation Commission, which is the mayor and the mayor pro tem, clear instructions of what they need to advocate for on a county level for a safer Calexico. So we can make sure that those initiatives are, like Mr. Figueroa says, en sintonía. Separately, a community forum might be appropriate for the issue of transportation more generally to learn about the community's need on the subject and bring those perspectives in to our road safety plan. I was told by the fire chief that we have roughly 2 car accidents a day in the city of Calexico. It is a drain on the fire department's resources, not just the fire side with potential burning vehicles, but also the ambulance that needs to rush people to El Centro in the case of a severe accident. Lastly, and very, very importantly, is inequality in employee pay. I was heartbroken to hear the neglect that some of our most essential municipal workers are receiving during this pandemic. I'm going to suggest, since I'm going to work with Camilo on an adapted version of the Hero Pay Ordinance from the city of Coachella, that we include our most essential municipal employees to that Hero Pay Ordinance. Our most essential workers, street, parks, some water department, some clerical employees, lack equipment, and a lot of them are getting paid a starvation wage of $14 an hour, which is less than a lot of fast food restaurants. It takes, from what I have seen and heard, it takes a lot of them an average of 20 years to get to $20 an hour. $20 an hour is close to the starting wage for those same positions in Brawley and El Centro. It's disrespectful, it's shameful, and we need to make an attempt to fix this during the upcoming budget process. On the 72-hour schedules that we give most of them, because we don't do full-time to deny them benefits, which is another injustice, they get take-home pay after taxes of around $1,500 a month. For perspective, $1,500 is about $100 over the limit to qualify for food stamps and Medi-Cal for an individual. These employees have to fend on themselves on those starvation wages without food stamps and without Medi-Cal. Workers shared with me that the ones that rent, who don't have a mortgage, who don't have the luxury of having locked in a cheap mortgage, since the rent costs here in Calexico have skyrocketed, workers shared with me that on that $1,500 wage, their rent plus utilities is about $1,000 a month. That leaves them with an average of $500 a month to feed their family, get health insurance, and pay for all of their kids' necessities. Everything on $500 a month is abuse. I don't want to hear the excuse of there's no money, because it's not that expensive. I calculated what it would cost to give one individual employee a $2 an hour raise. You know, hopefully we would consider it at least during the pandemic. But $2 an hour for a whole year on one employee costs about $4,000. We are about to vote on things that are $100,000, $300,000. No nos cuesta pellizcarle algo so that our employees are not starving from month to month. I'll remind this council, these are the same positions that start at $18 an hour in a place with cheaper rent, Brawley and El Centro, and they get a real union. Our employees get an association, not a union, and they don't feel represented. El Centro and Brawley, like I said, have rents that are anywhere between 30 to 50% less than Calexico. So we need to be paying more than those cities to consider it an equitable wage with the cost of living. So let's focus on getting them to $16 an hour starting and pacing towards equity as more money comes in. I feel like if we make this a priority, we can achieve it, and we will have a better city because of it, because our employees will not be starving. Like I said, I don't want to hear that there's no money. If there wasn't any money, we would also be suppressing administrative salaries. But we have, at least from what I know, not made our administrators pay their fair share in the same way that we're suppressing wages for our most vulnerable employees. It's not fair that we are putting all the burden on the people that do the hardest work for the city, cleaning the gutters, making sure that the water flows into the gutters, putting up the lights, painting the streets, cleaning up the parks, and the pilon, we don't even give them the right equipment, which is why they're requesting it in one of the items that we're about to vote on. We all have to feel that pain equitably during a crisis. We can't focus it on our most vulnerable employees that are already struggling to pay rent. $500 a month, that's a car accident away from bankruptcy. That's not okay. We can't have our employees working under that kind of psychological stress. I want to make it very clear to the directors of these employees, and I know it's not your fault. This problem is not the director's fault, but I want to make it very clear to the directors. Do not get in the way of the right to organize for a living wage and better working conditions. I will be monitoring retaliation. If there is any illegal retaliation against any of these employees, I will be the first one to know. And I will not tolerate that type of liability for the city of Calexico. Abuse ends here. I'm committed to ending the culture of bowed heads. I am here to listen and advocate for all our employees, to end the culture of abuse that has plagued our personnel practices for so many decades. No employee should feel afraid to speak up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councilwoman
Thank you,
Romo?
Madam Mayor. I participate in the community forum, Madam, and thank you so much. All participants. It's I don't know. Remember what is how many is 24 or 25 participate in this forum. Very good idea. Thank you so much, Mr. Ureña. And the other, and second, the city manager invited us on a tour for 2 fire stations. I want Mr. Figueroa to prepare us as soon as possible for the next meeting a budget to repair the station number 2 building and some financial proposals to pay for the repair. That's it, Madam.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Garcia?
Can you hear me? Okay. I also attended the League of Cities call, Zoom call, and it's really interesting, and not just interesting, but actually something that we have to keep up, make sure that, we stay informed. It is very important that, we stay on top of it, the report and that information that the city manager provided as far as any potential assistance that might be coming to Calexico. We should look at it as that, as a potential, and not count. And that's not to say that that's what we're doing, but we don't want to see that as a silver bullet. I think we have to continue to be fiscally responsible. We need to attend to the needs of our citizens, and that is including also our staff here at the city. So with that, I commend that. All of the city employees for the work that they do day in, day out without complaining. So I hear you, I feel you, and I want to work, and I'm going to work for you and with you. With that also in mind, let me just go back and bring back a request that I put in also a couple of meetings ago, and even before that, we need to make sure that we get with the strategic planning, because we're talking about needs, we're talking about different issues, ways that we need to address and prioritize the needs of our city, the needs of our community, whether it's here internal or out there. I think if we just continue to go in different directions and be reactive, we're not going to be effective. We're going to continue the status quo. Yes, we will have our passions over certain issues or certain initiatives, but without a plan, we're not going to go anywhere. So it is important that city manager, the sooner the better, because we need to make sure that we prioritize. We need to make sure that we have the North Star that we need to follow, whether it's getting out of this pandemic and having a clear plan as to how we're going to move forward, as to how we're going to address all these things brought up by all the council members and by the citizens. But a ship with no direction, it's a clear recipe for disaster. So I want to make sure that we start getting a direction through this council, through the leadership of this council, through the planning that is sound and that is based on clear, resources, on clear, strategies, and not just on something that we wish. We can have our wish list, but let's stick to reality also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Now, moving on, I'll start off with, on February the 5th, Friday, I went on Zoom with LAFCO. I was part of the city select committee in which Mr. Moreno was selected. Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Then on Fridays, I've been attending, the county health department updates, the COVID-19. We have meetings on Fridays, and since last Friday, they canceled it because they were due to the vaccines that they were giving out. We had it yesterday. And they are giving us updates on what is happening throughout our valley, which is very informative. And I will add, Mr. Ureña, I did attend Friday. When you mentioned on social media, I mean, you just love going on social media and saying negative things about me. But just for your information, I did attend, and I do attend the COVID-19 meetings, okay? Moving on. We did have a tour in the fire department. I will say that I can't thank enough what our fire department has been doing for this community. I know that it's been tough on you, and I want to say living conditions in some point, but we're working on it, and hopefully once we get our new station up, then we could also start working on the west side. And thank you, Diego, and all your firemen for such an awesome job that you do in this community. Also, I did attend the League of Cities, which was yesterday, as along with Mayor Pro Tem. And I guess that's all I have. Oh, I do want to make a comment on the City of Calexico Code of Ethics. And the reason I'm bringing it up is that on the last meeting, Mr. Ureña wasn't very professional, per se, to Mr. Garcia. And this was brought to my attention via telephone and texts from members of the community. I feel that as city council people, we have to conduct as members professionally and respect one another. Mr. Ureña made the comment of Mr. Garcia being racist. How could you say being racist of a man that has worked 20 years with the farm workers in the one stop? Has attended almost every farm workers events. Also, he was referred to being a liar, couldn't be trusted. I, for one, want to say something. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Garcia, and I do trust him. I just want to move forward with and stick to the agenda, be professional, and respect one another. And I mean it, all of us here. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Now moving on to consent agenda. Do you have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve items 5 to 9.
Second,
Motion to approve items 5 to 9.
5 to 9, okay.
5, 6, 7,
Excuse me, Mayor, we're missing 1,
5 to 9.
10.
5 to 10?
8, 9, and
It's
10.
different.
5 to 9.
And there's a 10. We don't have,
I'll do 10 actually. 5 to 10.
yeah.
5 to 10?
Okay.
Okay. Second,
Mayor Adriana Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Potem Moreno,
Aye.
Councilmember Urena,
Aye.
Councilmember Romo,
aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Discussion and potential action items. 11, introduction and first reading by title only of an ordinance regarding city council members' comments and reports limited to 5 minutes each.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as the staff report reads, this was an item that was requested, that was prepared by City Attorney Carlos Campos, pertaining to the subject matter that you just read. At this moment right now, we feel that this item should be passed on to the council for discussion and consideration.
Any discussion?
Yes, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Moreno?
Yeah, as presiding officers do have, I believe, the authority under municipal code to work in an efficient manner. And like you said, we respect each other in comments, right? Respectful. One of the things that I'm a huge advocate for is that we have the citizens of Calexico every other week here waiting for us to decide matters of jurisdiction for Calexico, especially agenda items that matters to them. And limiting it for 5 minutes, I think it's enough, I think, if that's a proposal. That would avoid for us to just keep going with the meetings, long enough that, so I believe that 5 minutes will be proper. Me personally, I've always made my comments to the point, precise, especially because I don't want to take, the time that is so valuable to the citizens. And the matters of the agenda need to be decided. Also, most importantly, I think, Mr. Figueroa needs to also give direction from us, matters that, so he can go on his business. And prolonging the meetings for 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever minutes, and I know we get too carried away sometimes, I think streamlining it for 5 minutes is proper.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Moreno?
I don't necessarily oppose this ordinance. I'm not going to make the motion right now. I'll leave it into the floor once we're done with discussion. But I would say 10 minutes is probably more reasonable. And I'll go back to that meeting where we, I think, ended at 10:32, which was the first meeting where this particular issue came to mind. And I'm a person with a disability, specifically an organizational disability. So I'm very precise about time because I'm very sensitive about my organizational capacities with my disability. So I went back and I saw to verify to see if that meeting was long because of city council comments or if it was long because there was a lot of things to do on the agenda. And I came to it, and if I had not made my city council comments, that meeting, instead of ending at 10:32, would have ended at 10:17 minus 15 minutes. Quite frankly, I'm not making a motion. I would make a motion to approve this, but to 10 minutes to give flexibility, because at the end of the day, we do need to talk about a lot of things that are not on the agenda. We do need to give some administrative decisions and directions from here. I would ask the person that is proposing, or the two people that are proposing this ordinance for two commitments in order to get my support on this. It's fine if you want to limit city council comments, but I want to have the commitment from the mayor that in agenda review, she will not block us from itemizing things for formal discussion, that when it is appropriate on general issues, in order to not saturate this agenda, that we do go ahead and have special meetings separate to this one. Just going to ask how, it's fine if we place this to make regular meetings have a definite end time. how are we going to discuss, what do you propose, what is the proper forum that you would propose for us to discuss the lengthy issues like transportation, homelessness, COVID?
Okay, I just asked you to make your comment on it, and then we're going to move on, okay?
Madam Mayor, if
No, sir, that's it. You're
I'm
just to discuss your opinion on it. You're not asking me questions.
Madam
If I-
Mayor, oh, go
No,
ahead, go
that's,
ahead,
I'm
go ahead.
telling you, that's
Go
it.
ahead.
Moving on. Mrs. Romo?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my opinion, it's not agree because it's my freedom time. It's never. It's my time. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Mr. Garcia, do you have anything to comment?
No, I just feel for, just to be able to get to really the items that need to be discussed. I think, having not having a set time, sometimes we get passionate about different issues or different things, and we can overextend our comments. So I think, we need to really put ourselves into the agenda, and then, maybe, putting this off towards the end of the agenda, once we already took care of business. But also we got to think about our people, our citizens, the ones that are watching, ourselves also. I mean, yes, 5 minutes, and then if you still have something to say at the, do you want to, share, maybe at the end. I think just so we can get to the business at hand. I think we owe it to the community and to the staff also that is waiting to go home. I think, that would be more ideal.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I make a
Thank you,
motion to
Mr.
approve.
Garcia, and my comment is, I would like to I agree with Mr. Garcia and Mr. Moreno. In 5 minutes, I think it's good enough time that we just get to the point of what we have attended and our reports. That way we could attend business, which is the agenda. Okay?
Madam Mayor,
So
I would
do
like
I
to
have
make
a motion
I would
to
like to make a
approve?
motion to approve with the amendment of 10 minutes. I am making a motion to approve with the amendment of 10 minutes. Is there a second?
Second?
There is a
That's okay.
second.
Can we
10
have a
minutes?
second?
10 minutes? Uh-huh.
Madam Mayor, I do have some discussion on the motion that is being put.
We're right now, we're in
City
motion.
Attorney, am I allowed to have, this is a debatable motion, am I allowed to speak at this moment or to ask for the floor?
Yeah, but we have a motion second. There should be some discussion time, and then once you have a second,
Well, he already made the motion, and she seconded,
Yeah,
so
it's time
now
to
for 10
discuss-
minutes now?
It's time to discuss the
No,
motion.
just take the opportunity to make some
Amendment.
comments on it. It's not having
Uh-huh.
for 10
Amendment
minutes.
5 for 10.
It's not gonna go on, we need to get to the agenda.
Madam Mayor, just for your information, point of information, you have a right to limit, I'm not sure if you've read your responsibilities, but you actually have the right, according to the municipal code, I was wrong, by the way, you have the right to limit debate on motions, but you do not have the right to get rid of debate. That's what the municipal code says, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it has some, have to look specific, we did have
Yeah.
language on that. I think right now, there's a first and a second.
Okay.
People have comments on that motion right now, the motion on the floor, first, second. If we just have some brief discussion, after that, somebody can call the question, and then we'll take a roll call on it. Another option would be a substitute motion, but right now, there's a main motion on the floor, so we just allow some brief discussion, and then and after that, you can just take a roll call on that. Or you can do a substitute motion.
What's the discussion? Do you have something to say, Mr. Moreno?
If I may
Okay,
ask
do
for
you
the
have something to say?
floor? Yes, I do, actually. So the last time we tried to pass an ordinance, since I was the person that put out the proposal, I got questions from every single person on this council, and I answered each and every single one of those questions, as ridiculous as they might have been. It's very disrespectful for you, Madam Mayor, to say that you're proposing something, but don't want to answer my question about how we're going to handle things that require more than 5 minutes. So in order to get this moving, can you please tell us what is the proper forum if not city council comments? Where are we going to express the more complicated issues? I will be satisfied if you can give me an alternate forum so we can keep this one clear. If you may answer that question, please.
Okay, have you seen, Mr. Ureña, that when we make our comments, we limit our comments? We're not here talking for half an hour, turning page by page by page, and that's the reason why we're getting to this. We got to this point.
That is not the question.
I'm sorry,
Madam Mayor.
and this is that's how we got to this point, and this is,
Madam Mayor,
is there
I have
another
not yielded
discussion?
the floor.
Okay, do you have something else
Point
to
of
say,
order,
Mr.
Madam
Ureña?
Mayor. I have not yielded the floor. You have ceded the floor. I have not yielded it back. This is not how this works. You really need to go back and read your responsibilities because you don't know how to run a meeting.
Oh, I don't know how to run
No,
meetings.
you don't.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
If you were to know how to run this meeting, you would have known that you had the right to limit debate at any point.
Can we just get back to the motion? Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Of course. She doesn't want to answer
Okay.
questions. Let's just get that clear.
Yeah, so right now, 10 minutes, make your comments, and if there's
Go
Okay.
ahead. Call the vote. You have that right.
Do we have
by
a
the way.
motion now? Okay.
There's a
What's the
motion and a second.
First and
yeah.
a second. So
No, they have a
It's on
first,
the
okay.
floor, yeah.
Yeah, so the motion on the floor is to amend the proposal from 5 to 10 minutes. That's the motion on the floor. That's
5 or 10.
Okay. Mayor Arreola Fernandez?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno? No. Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
No.
Motion does not pass.
Okay. Moving on.
Other motion.
So right now, somebody can make another move.
For the 5 minutes.
Yes,
Can
the
I-
motion has been to 5 minutes. Oh,
Ay, Dios mío.
moving back to the motion. Introduction and first reading by the title only of an ordinance regarding city council members' comments and reports limited to 5 minutes each. Now, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
No.
Councilmember Romo?
No.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, moving on to
I need to
item-
read the title, ma'am, of the,
Sorry.
let me just read the title. Title of an ordinance of the City of Calexico, California, amending Calexico Municipal Code, Section 2.04.080 regarding city council member reports and comments.
Madam Mayor, moving forward, as this body approved the amended agenda,
Yes.
we have item 11A, which is the letter from this governing board to California Governor Gavin Newsom as it pertains to the additional vaccine allocations that are being requested. Councilmember Ureña alluded to this letter in terms of the work that Supervisor Escobar has done and how the County Board of Supervisors made a determination to send this letter to Governor Newsom. At this point right now, what we're seeking is for this body to consider this letter for the aforementioned purpose. And if so, it's going to be signed by each one of you, and it's going to get submitted to the governor's office, in addition to our state senator and state assembly member that represent Imperial County and Calexico.
Motion to approve.
Now, do I have a motion for this to sign the letter and send out to our governor, Gavin Newsom?
Motion to approve with one very brief comment is I would advise if you could please communicate to the county that it would have been much more effective for them to use the normalized population statistics for better effect. But other than that, you know, I make the motion to approve.
Understood.
Is there a
I
second?
didn't quite hear what you
Second.
Just a second.
said. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno? Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving on to discussion and potential action on the future of the ad hoc COVID-19 committee.
In a similar fashion, as item 11. This was an item that was requested, prepared by City Attorney Carlos Campos. I do want to note a grammatical error on the staff report. It should not read Romero, it should read Moreno. And just for the record, so we can make that clarification on the grammatical error on the staff report. With that said, Madam Mayor, members of the council, at this point, it's an item up for discussion.
Okay, item for discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So at the December 16, 2020 City Council meeting, the City Council voted to establish a COVID-19 ad hoc committee. The committee was intended to serve as an advisory group and resources, ongoing actions and effort to supporting health in our city during the pandemic. Also, I should note that Council Member Camilo Garcia amended a motion for the committee, to the ad committee, to present a proposal in terms of the committee scope and work, including a budget to City Council. So, as that hasn't happened, in order to prevent further redundancy of work, and information sharing, and ensure that the resources used by the city staff are used appropriately, I therefore make a motion to suspend the ad hoc committee indefinitely.
Madam Mayor, some
Do I
discussion?
have a second?
Oh, no, you have to make the second first, sorry, go ahead. A second has to be made before discussion. Go
Do I
ahead.
have a
Yeah,
second?
she's making it.
A second.
Okay,
So-
now for discussion?
Yes, I do have some questions for the proponents of this. When you say duplication, can you be a little bit more specific? During my COVID committee report today, and actually before I even get there, let me just address what was already brought up with scope of purpose and budget. Budget, $0. Scope of purpose has admittedly, we haven't done it because we've been so busy with testing, vaccination, keeping the county accountable, and all the things that we are doing for the city. But that's my answer to that. But to the substance of my comment, I just brought up to you a 13-point discrimination that is going on towards Calexico from the county. We go back to the December 16 meeting. When we approved our Calexico COVID committee, El Centro was inspired and also passed their El Centro COVID committee. Fast forward to the present day, and now we're saying, well, El Centro is going to keep theirs because they're smart. But now the city of Calexico says, well, you know what? We don't really want to hold the county accountable for that 13-point difference. Who's going to keep the county accountable for differences in discrimination, if not the COVID committee? This is my question to the proponents of this motion.
I am authorized to answer, but I'm not obligated to answer that.
I know you don't like to answer questions. Go ahead and proceed with the vote.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussions?
No, Madam Mayor.
No?
No.
Okay.
I have public comments on this
Okay.
item. Bulldog investigators, it is my understanding at this time a COVID committee is necessary for Imperial County. It makes sense that each city has one due to the fact that the numbers at stake from each city, Calexico always seems to have the highest numbers for COVID, so it is only convenient that the city has this committee since every city has one. Calexico would be a joke if it didn't. It is crucial that committee stays in contact and continues to meet. With that being said, all council members should settle and put their differences aside and work together at difficult times like these. We, as a civil group of Calexico citizens, expect to see Mr. Ureña act like an adult and put his little childish tantrums to the side. He continues to attack Ms. Fernandez after he was told to stop, and when Ms. Fernandez hasn't said anything about him that as malicious. He tends to be misinforming the public about items that make pretty remarks about people. I think he's, hang on. Okay, that is all on item 12.
That's all you have?
Yeah. Hello, council. This is a question for Rosie and Javier. How is disassembling the COVID committee any form of progress? Javier, you once told me last year on Thanksgiving Day that a disease is real, but a pandemic is man-made. This showed me your true level of intellect and critical thinking. You probably don't believe in this pandemic, but I guarantee you Calicianos have been dying, Calicianos' jobs have been lost, Caliciano businesses have been closing, and here you are working if the committee is worth having, wondering if the committee is worth having. I truly wonder what y'all been so worried about it. Javier, you also said we already have a county committee. Why do we need another one? All while Calexico was getting at the least amount of COVID tests and had the highest numbers of cases. Truly, you don't know much about the city you serve. Rosie, helps the citizens. No te va a costar. Why do you worry about the resources more than the lives at risk? Nothing is free, like some people would say. Sure, this might take away from another set of cheap public workout machines,
Madam
but if it
Secretary,
can save at least...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think Rosie is having difficulty listening.
Okay.
Are you listening okay?
What?
You were making some faces. You always say that you can't hear. Are you able to hear?
Okay,
Continue with
live,
the
I
comment.
think it's worth it. Stop fighting and start helping those who want to help. That's what you're supposed to do. Gilberto Manzanares. Hello, council members. I am sending this email in support of the Calexico COVID Ad Hoc Committee. This essential resource should not be dismantled in such a critical time in our community. The committee uses no staff hours, nor does it have any fiscal impact. It is a unique task force created for specific community in mind, with people like Dr. Vo and members of the Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition and Heffernan Healthcare District involved. Please, I am interested to know the reasoning from Moreno and Fernandez for wanting to reconsider the establishment of this committee just over a month of it being created. It is very clear from the December meeting you didn't want it to come to fruition. Please ask Dr. Vo if he considers it essential. Please ask Director Escobar if he considers it essential. In fact, I'll do it for you. Just today, Director said that, and I quote, "It is valuable for our community to have an ad hoc committee." Absolutely, end quote. We do not have to depend 100% on the county. The city needs to do its part. Mr. Garcia said multiple times, now is the time for action. Well, this is it. This is how, by cementing this committee. If not, please enlighten the community what your direct action is instead of the committee, because I have not heard anything else to help with COVID. Council members, do not dismantle this committee. Thank you. The following person is Daniela Flores, and she wishes to speak via Zoom, so we're going to ask her to unmute at this time. To unmute at this time.
Good evening. My name is Daniela Flores. I'm a resident of Calexico, a community advocate with the Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition, and the secretary of the Ad Hoc COVID Committee. I'm calling in to express my opposition to the recommendation by Mayor Arriola Fernandez and Mayor Pro Tem Moreno to take action to disband or restructure the Ad Hoc COVID Committee, and to express my highest support for this committee, and to refute the claim that this committee serves as a duplicate effort or that it impacts city resources. Our committee has built a coalition around the issue of COVID-19 in Calexico with a diverse stakeholder group, including our city council, Heffernan Memorial District, the school district, medical providers, county representatives, and community residents. And recently, the Pioneers Hospital has been also invited, as well as we continue to actively invite other stakeholders. This is a moment that calls for unity. for 100% unity among our community in order to implement a cohesive plan for COVID testing, vaccination, communication, and other issues. Unity for our people, unity so that we work together to overcome this pandemic together, and unity to save lives. Our Imperial County Supervisor, Jesus Escobar, was at our last COVID committee meeting and wanted us to communicate his support for this committee. The following is a direct quote from Supervisor's remark during that committee meeting. Quote, "My response is very clear and very direct. I fully support the COVID committee. I think at the end of the day, what we want to do is save lives. And by supporting this committee, I believe we are headed in the right direction as far as the implementation process from a vaccine perspective, communication, from an engagement perspective across the board. My support is 100% there." End quote. Council members, I humbly ask you to consider that this dedicated effort on COVID-19 brings stakeholders together is part of the solution to overcoming this pandemic. If the council members that introduced this item propose disbanding this committee, I urge you to provide evidence that these efforts are duplicate and that it is resulting in the use of significant city resources. Why is it that this council is not having a rich discussion about disbanding this committee? I just heard two comments from two council members with such an important and one of the most important issues that our community is facing. I really expect that our council members will have a rich discussion and talk about pros and cons, and rather than going forward with just voting on it without expressing their opinions and providing evidence for the duplication. So I humbly ask you to consider supporting the existence of this committee or provide an alternate and an alternative now, because we can't wait on COVID. It's happening now. Thank you. So I humbly ask you to consider existence of this committee or provide a...
Mr. Luis Olmedo, and we're going to ask him to unmute so he can begin speaking.
Committee or provide a...
Mr. Luis Olmedo, he can begin speaking.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor. I'm getting some feedback. Am I ready to go?
Mr. Luis Olmedo.
Good evening. My name is Luis Olmedo. I'm the Executive Director of Comité Cívico del Valle. Dear Mayor and members of the Council, I wanted to get myself on the record because, I see the divisions. It is definitely not what I would like to see in a city that is majority Latinos in the entire Imperial County, although we are over 85 combined throughout the entire Imperial County. It is a mistake to disband this committee. It is a mistake to even have a discussion of disbanding this committee. I'm not going to try to give you creative language or try to convince you. I'm just going to tell you straight up. If you disband this committee, you're setting yourself many feet backwards than where the state is headed. Right now, they are looking at communities like Calexico, and they are going to be measuring equity metrics. They're going to expect them. This committee is in the strongest position to help local providers, to help the hospitals meet those metrics so that Calexico can get quantities. If you think that's not real, you need to follow the governors and the state's direction of where they're going. Pretty soon they're going to transition into a provider, a health plan distributor, which is Blue Cross, I think, Blue Shield, I'm sorry. Who's going to be looking at these metrics? This committee is going to save Calexico, help Calexico get the quantities that you need to address them. You also cannot ignore Calexico. That should not be a political division. We have people in Mexicali who are working, who have every right to work in Calexico, in the Imperial Valley, who are utilizing that border. If you continue down this path and continue to push this narrative because of political divisions, it's good. It's the wrong direction. I encourage you and I urge you to support the remaining this committee. Thank you. subdivisions. It's good. It's the wrong direction. I encourage.
Is that all? Okay, I will make a comment. I'm gonna the reason why I'm in favor of disbanding this committee is because we never got any reports at all. Did you get a reports as a council people? There was no reports given to us. And it's repetitive. All the information that you're getting, we're getting it every Friday from the county. And the county is out there disturbing to all the area, to all Imperial County, we're getting the same information. And I hear you. Yes, Calexico, you know, we're crucial. I mean, we live in a city that we had a lot of cases of COVID, and but I see that this ad hoc, all it has done is cause a lot of chaos. And not only that, you're saying that it's no impact on our city employees, but it is. You take time away from our city manager, and you take time away from our city clerk. Whether it's even a minute, that's time taken away for her to be doing other things, and also with our city manager. That's my viewpoint. And because what I have seen, I have not had any communication at all from this ad hoc committee. And that's where I stand.
Madam
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may respond by yielding the floor, if I may have the floor to respond to your concerns at this point with a motion in a second before we proceed to a vote.
I can't even hear what he says.
May I have the floor, Madam Mayor, to respond to your concerns?
No.
Okay. Así se hace la democracia.
Okay, moving on.
Madam Mayor, whatever effort is very important for Calexico, whatever. Please, okay?
Well, we're going to vote on it.
Okay.
Pues voten.
So what was the motion?
Make a motion to,
There was already a first and a second, so now it's the vote. Gaby.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno, Councilmember Ureña,
No.
Councilmember Romo,
No.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Moving on to item 13, authorize the city manager to purchase restrooms for Adrian C. Cordova Memorial Park in the amount of $303,901,037 from Romtek Industries under by Board National Purchasing Corporation Purchase Agreement.
Madam Mayor, on this item, I do want to commend Public Works Administrative Manager Liliana Falomir for preparing the item and bringing it forth. I do want to point out on the background section on the first page of your staff report that it should read April 3rd, 2020, not 2021, for the record. What I do want to share is that this project is part of the ongoing efforts to bring the Adrian C. Cordova Park to fruition. There was a community financial district, what we come to know as the CFD, created in 2003, specifically for the improvements and the work that needs to get done. I do want to point out that this is the CFD that we're looking to cover for this item. And I do want to point out, and I quote specifically from the description of this CFD. CFD 2003-1 is to pay for maintenance of parks and open space, flood control, storm protection services, and the purchase, construction, expansion, improvement, rehabilitation of park, open space, and storm drain facilities. In essence, that's what the CFD is tied for. Specifically, on this item, what's being requested for your consideration is that Romtek, who is the company that is being proposed to provide the service, will prefabricate the restroom. The dimension of the restroom is going to be 25 feet by 23 feet. The plans, specifically on the specs for the restrooms, are included in the agenda package. This prefab restrooms will include storage mechanical room, a concrete walk, two drinking fountains, a woman's restroom that includes 4 toilets, 2 sinks, a men's restroom that includes 2 toilets, 2 urinals, and 2 sinks. There's something that I also want to share with this council, and that is that the proposed use for these restrooms are for the future development of the 3 baseball fields, 1 soccer field, and 1 basketball court that are going to be part of the Adrian C. Cordova Park. One of the things that's also important to note is that these will only be used when there are activities going on at these facilities. The restrooms are going to sit on the Zapata Street side of Adrian C. Cordova Park. For the record and for your knowledge, I do want to point 2 other examples of restrooms that were built in the city of Calexico. One of them at Crumit Park came at a cost of $285,000. The second one came at restrooms that were built at the community center in the amount of $525,000. The reason that I share these figures is so we can have a comparison of what other restrooms that were built cost in the city. Along with that, I mentioned the funding source of these restrooms, the specifications of the restrooms, and the intended use of the restrooms. If there's any comments or questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them at this point.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question or questions on this.
Yeah, any comments, questions?
I do, but I'll defer to Mr. Camilo Garcia.
Okay. Mr. Figueroa, if we go to page 1 of 6 on the Romtek specifications, that the PO, so the prefab, that the building, the design and supply, it's 109, almost 110. So, and then we go down to the installation. That's about 180. That's at 182,505. Plus, they also are charging bonding. So why, all those charges, bonding? I mean, usually, the company's bonded, itself. We're being passed that the cost to us. So this, and also with the freight, to bring it to Calexico. So it comes down to the total that we have, 303,901 cents. So I think it's just, again, I'm no engineer, I'm no expert on this, but have we done any type of, I don't want to put more work on the staff, but it's some type of an in-house assessment. Because this is a prefab. And then also, I really dislike, change orders. And I can see, and again, enlighten me or someone enlighten me about this, but I can see a potential of change orders. So this can go up. So I know we can't really, foresee that, but I think 303,000, almost 304, I think is a bit steep on the price. So maybe we need to do a little more due diligence, and I'm not questioning, but I'm just trying to be a little more, I guess, inquisitive as to are we getting our money's worth? Again, answer those questions for me.
I put into perspective, and that's a point well taken, Councilman Garcia, the example of the cost to build 2 other restrooms in previous years here in the city. So we could put into perspective the cost for this one in particular. One of the other things that I do want to point out as the staff report reads, by board National Purchasing is the entity that actually facilitated the procurement process, just because of how sensitive matters like these are when it comes to a high cost to build out and or purchase items like this, specifically for a long overdue project like Adrian C. Cordova. Like I mentioned, this CFD goes back to 2003. And again, per the description and definition of how the Bravo Rodiles CFD was created and its purpose, it's intended to put the money to use on matters like this. To address your comment, what we have right now in front of you is something that was overwatched by a third-party procurement specialist. It was conveyed and passed per the direction of previous items for Adrian C. Cordova Park that this body has approved, so we could move forward with this right now. If there are any additional comments or concerns, specifically detailing with the breakdown that we have on page 1 of 6, as it pertains to the design, the supply, and the installation, those are things that can obviously be provided, but then again, that is why a third-party procurement company was brought on board, specifically to make sure that the proper due diligence was done when a hefty price tag such as this one would come about for your consideration.
So why did we choose to go for a prefab structure instead of a build-out?
That is something per the design of the Adrian C. Cordova Park that already was done. And aside from the fact that although this has been a project that's been in the works for over a decade, the reason that it hasn't been built out, because obviously this is a project that should have been completed years back, has been the funding. One of the sources has been the CFD, like I mentioned. Every year this CFD collects on average between $200,000 and $220,000. Again, to answer your question about the design and the engineering, that is already something that was incorporated into the actual plan that got adopted at its time when that was about.
Okay, so CFD, that's another question. I know you mentioned as to the type of, how we can spend that money, or that money can be spent. But CFD also is being paid by that area. But this is also benefiting the entire community. Yes. So now, are there any other needs for that specific area that we're using this money, and then whenever there's a need, how we're going to pay for that need? Mr. So again, I'm just trying again to make sure that we take care of everything, that we do the due diligence, that we do things, and not because I know things have taken such a long time, as we are finding out. It's not you, it's not us, but now that we're here, we have to own this thing and make sure that it moves forward, but not to move it forward because it needs to be moved forward. We need to make the decision that it's going to benefit the entire community and be watchful of the monies. So
Mr.
that's
Garcia,
what I'm asking.
That's a fantastic question. And you allow me the opportunity to share something for our community and the rest of the council to know. And that is that the Bravo Rodiles 2003-1 CFD is bounded in the following area of Calexico: East Zapata Street on the south, Meadows Drive on the north, Clinton Avenue on the west, and Backward Road on the east. For some of us that are Calexico residents, I think we can kind of see the rectangle that I just alluded to. And that rectangle that I just alluded to has as its prime project, obviously, the Adrian C. Cordova Park. And again, and I appreciate the comment because you allow me to, again, just once again, make a statement as to what can be done within that space of land that I shared with you. Maintenance of parks and open space, flood control, storm protection services, the purchase, construction, expansion, improvement, and rehabilitation of park, open space, and storm drain facilities. Those are the activities that can be paid for through the CFD, through the bounded area that I shared with you.
Okay, so you explained it for a second time. I get it. But also, I don't know, and again, you know, I need to know the lifetime, the warranty that we're getting on this thing also, because something that is prefab, it might be a misconception. You know, I'm thinking, okay, you put something together. I know it's not, you know, that as simple as that, you know. And as an example, we have the modulars that have been installed at the Calexico High School. But again, no, we're looking at structures that are going to be there, and hopefully they're not there just for events. Hopefully they're open to the public when the need arises. So for that, we need to build something that is, you know, for the future. We need to build something that is cost effective. And that's not to say that this is not cost effective, but I just want to make sure that we have analyzed and that we have compared this construction or this structure versus a build-out unit. So even I don't know, maybe even if we were to spend a little more money, but then also I'm looking at and I'm going to mention something that it's a passion of mine also. Local hire. You know, we're talking about employing our people. We're talking about providing wages for our people, right? So if we can do this build out here and employ some of our local people, I think we're using our monies more effectively. Thank you.
And again, that's a good point in terms of stimulating our local economy. Romtek is the actual company from which this is going to be purchased and installed. There is local contractors that will be utilized. So I just want to point that out there as well. That's for obviously for the company that's going to be doing the installation work to determine. But there is going to be some benefit to the local contracting community here in the valley.
This is the point.
Any questions?
I have something, Madam Mayor. So in terms of projects, I understand there's usually, typically on a project such as big like this, you'll have a project manager that keeps you abreast of how the project is evolving, could potentially proceed some issues down the road and to address them before they get out of hand. Is there project management within that company?
Given that this is a specific project that's going to be done, which is not a multi-task project, but simply one of related to the restrooms for a project that's already been approved, it's just something that our staff at the Public Works Department will make sure that the inspection of the work complies with our Muni code here in Calexico.
Got it, thank you. Also, until Heaver Park is built on the west side of town, we're going to have also an impact of families also visit on that because it's a huge project, and we can all agree it's been on for many, many years, and they're all going to use that facilities, right? That's fine. That's they're for that reason. But I believe that CFUs that you were talking about, as far as when the money was allocated for that it was done for the jurisdiction, the close proximity for those people, right? Those officers live there, and that's the reason why it was passed for that reason. So can you hear me? Okay, is that the? So what I mean, if you have a population who's going to use it, but you have another population who's going to use it, that's not fair for the population who put in for it.
Well, and again, that's a good point that you bring up, so we can have the discussion on this. For example, as we know, this is going to be a good opportunity for some of our local sports leagues to use the same way they use other facilities in the city. This is just going to be an add-on. As you remember, one of the things that the past council was very strict on was making sure that the current softball fields that we have on Cesar Chavez Boulevard, as we know them as Legion Park, stay there until Adrian y Cordova Park is finished, because we don't want to eliminate a recreational area until we have something done, or else we're going to shortchange our community. So, like I mentioned, a CFD is actually bounded, right? And I just shared right now what those boundaries are. Is it going to be a public space? It's going to be a public space. It's not going to be a private recreational area. At this point right now, what we're looking at, given that the monies are there, is implement a long overdue project that's already been designed and approved.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more comments? I'm not comfortable with the price. I think I mentioned it to you in our briefing. So what other options do we have?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, this body will make a determination if you wish to move forward with it or not. Depending on what that determination is, we as staff will have to regroup and determine what those next steps are going to be. At this point right now, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for making that point, we're just following through with a previous process that was put in place. At this point right now, along with another item on the agenda further down, it's pretty much us just bringing to your attention the different elements that are going to make up Adrian y Cordova Park. As we know, because the city was not able to get it done all at once, that's why it's being piecemeal.
I personally would like to table it. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, and see, spend more time or study it a little bit more, or look, see if there's any other options. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
You should make that into a motion, so we can vote on it.
Perhaps Mr. Camilo Garcia would like to join me, and then maybe do a little more fact-finding.
How's that?
Well, you know what, can you look into other options, at least that we can compare, right? I know, I understand we have waited, for quite a long time for this to continue. But then also, we want to make sure that we have, the options and at least, I don't know, to me, it seems very steep, but it might be around the same, along a build out. But I want something to compare, and I'm just presented with this option. And I know that there was a committee that looked at this, there was a company, but this is what I'm presented, and this is what I have to decide. So what I'm suggesting is let's look into other options, let's look into build outs, let's see if there is something, within the locals. Again, I want something that it will be available for people whenever they need to use it, not just for events. Maybe that's the reason why this is a prefab. So I will make a motion that we go back and look at other options, and you bring it back.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mayor Ariola Fernandez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Councilmember Romo.
No.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes. 4-1.
Moving on to, thank you, Mr. Figueroa. Moving on to item 14, approved cannabis business tax revenue usage.
Measure K was put in the 2018 election ballot. City Attorney Carlos Campos and I worked on developing the language for Measure K. Measure K, as it reads in your staff report on page 1, is intended to address and support city services that are outlined in there. As a result of that, we at first did not have a large amount of resources that were generated through the cannabis industry in Calexico back in 2018. The breakdown that you have in your staff report shows the years, for the past 3 years, the amount of money that has been accumulating. Therefore, it's my obligation to bring it to your attention that at this moment right now we have $147,889.23. As a result of that, and like I referenced, these are for community services. What I did was went ahead and on February 10th, I emailed my staff and I gave them direction to provide me some of the needs that they have that could be addressed with the Measure K funds. As a result of that, I had the opportunity to sit down with each one of you and provide you and share with you in detail the proposed recommendations received from staff. At this point right now, as I shared with you, we have a recommendation from the Public Works Department as it pertains to parks, specifically for equipment that could be considered for these monies, along with one temporary staffer. For downtown, Public Works Department is proposing the purchase of one pressure washer for the cleanup duties that are to be performed by the environmental services worker, which, if I may say, at this point right now, the city is recruiting. And the First Street restrooms, for which we have received a detailed budget as to how much it would cost to fix. We also received correspondence from our fire chief outlining 8 specific things: emergency handheld radios, wildland gear in service that they need to use, structure gear in service, a floor cleaning service for their facility, a life pack for the cardiac services that they offer, those that they attend to, a thermal imaging camera, and bulletproof vest for them. He went to the detail of providing a cost for each of those items. I do want to point out, as he references in his email, that the structure gear and service, which is what they use, they've had since 2008. The wildland gear that they used when called upon is from 2009. I also received a response from our police chief, Gonzalo Gerardo, in which at this point right now he is requesting that a fully outfitted patrol vehicle be purchased, and he specifies one vehicle for the use of Measure K funds. With that in line, and with the discussion and information that I was able to provide you, at this point right now, Madam Mayor, I think there's time to have a discussion and for recommendations to be made as the agenda item calls.
Do you have a discussion?
I'll just start with for me, what's easier for me is the Measure K funding request for the downtown restrooms, I'm sorry. I personally, I used to remember going to when I was in patrol here, and those obviously they need a lot of repairs. However, I believe those photos I saw one time, they're very old. I believe this amount here is not even going to reflect probably half of that. They're going to need more money, and since we're not open downtown yet, and the fact that police and fire need that money more because they're the first responders here, I would cancel that one out temporarily. Then I would consider the other items for the police car. Chief Gerardo, if I may. So it's one car, and that's fully packaged. Okay. Thank you. And of course you're short of more cars, but you need, right. Chief Favila, and I know you and I have this conversation.
before. You're probably one of the departments that needs probably most of the funds. So I would ask my council members to also consider some of these items here. And I don't know if we even have enough to cover everything. Definitely, yeah, because I don't believe we have enough for that. So that's my comments.
If I may. I think, Councilman Moreno, I echo his comments. I think there is a huge need everywhere we look at, and we need to prioritize. So, I think we're just trying to patch things where there's actually a need for a fix. So I know this is, we want to call it the first installment. Hopefully we'll get more. But for now, I think we need to look at the need. And yeah, I do concur, police and fire, they're crucial. We just saw that, the report, the total calls that they got, for the past year, 5,000 plus, a record number, and with what they're doing. And I know we're talking about needs. So yeah, so I want to make sure that, we at least provide that the basics of what they need with this first installment. And then also, I didn't see any suggestions here from perhaps Parks and Rec, the library, other departments. I don't know if they didn't respond,
Yeah,
or maybe the priority was.
No, an email was sent out to the departments that qualify for these funds. I gave an internal deadline as to when they had to submit their comments, for the sake of being able to have ample time to present these items to you in my agenda briefings. There were comments that came after the deadline that I gave. Like I shared with staff, those items are going to be considered for the next cycle. And the reason for that is because it is my responsibility to make sure that I prepare you folks as council members with the information. That is why I had to set a deadline for which I would get the responses. So with that in mind, there is also something that I shared with the rest of the staff, and that is that staff members that were not included in the original correspondence will be included on the second installment. Okay. I also want to make sure, and I concur with your statement, Councilman Garcia, that this city has multiple needs across the board, and 147,000 is not even going to make a dent.
That's right.
At a minimum, what we can do right now is at least serve the purpose of what these monies were intended to be collected for.
And then also maybe, Councilwoman Romo also alluded to something that we were asked not to disclose, and I'm not going to, but we all know what we're talking about. Maybe some of that money can be used to look at that need, and that assess, what is it that we can do, or how can we approach that issue. So, I encourage you to please look at that as a priority also.
I just didn't understand what specifically you were referring
to. With the fire department in Station 2.
Understood. Yes. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for City Manager Figueroa. Councilman Moreno just said that the budget that you had proposed for the public restrooms was essentially fake news, that it would come out to double. Is that true, or is the budget just 56,000?
Public Works prepared the budget, and the budget that they prepared for me is one that would pay right now for the improvements that are being considered in the breakdown. And if I may share with the community and the council, those include the men's restroom fixtures, the men's restroom flooring, the women's restroom fixtures, the women's restroom flooring, plumbing, pipes, valves, lighting, paint, and labor. All that's included in the proposed improvements for the restrooms that currently to date, as it's presented here, that would be the cost for them in present time.
So it would not go up. So point number 2, downtown is not closed. Downtown every single day has at least 1,000 plus field workers that go through downtown before being picked up every single day, 2 to 5 a.m. They're defecating on the streets, and like was previously alluded, Mr. Garcia said he was not racist because he worked so long for field workers. Unfortunately, and I'm going to get to a quote from the police chief on his recommendation, it would be really sad for us not to stand up, especially for the female field working community right now that is defecating in alleyways where they're putting themselves at risk of rape because we don't want to set up a restroom. Downtown is not closed. Downtown is still full of life because we're an essential working community. So I'll go for a quote from our police chief where he gives us some advice on what are the priorities to the city. And he says, fire medical, street public works, and police in that order. So I would really say that maybe we should, we just gave the police chief $500,000 in radios. We should prioritize, like Gerardo says, fire and medical first, give them radios, give them their uniforms, and then give the rest to public works so they can fix the restrooms, so that they can get the equipment for Parks and Rec because that's in the budget. And yeah, I would just ask us to follow the advice of the police chief. Unless he has something else to say, he is more than welcome to do so.
Well, there's one thing here, and I'll take the direction right now.
Okay.
A statement that was made by Mr. Moreno that I do want to clarify. The pictures that were provided in terms of the state of the restrooms are a depiction of 2017 pictures.
Right.
Yeah.
The current budget to make the improvements is what is referenced in your packet. At this time right now, Madam Mayor, the intent of this presentation, given that we had discussed these items, was not for staff to come up, but at this point I want to leave it to your discretion. If you wish to have some of the staff here with us provide a statement on it, I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, Madam Mayor, please. Miguel, this money is for water, okay? It's for water, yes? Cada 3 meses for water.
Yes, it's gonna be brought back every quarter. Every quarter that we accumulate resources from the cannabis sales tax. The practice that you're going to see is me coming up and asking you folks to tell me where you want to spend the money.
Okay, in my opinion, the first for me is only for los radios y ¿qué? Son los uniformes. Radios y uniformes para el departamento, fire station. And then the rest is, is 84,060.90, okay? And the rest is 63,198 for public works, in my opinion. What is the other? Police department is for the cost for the one car, no? Yes. It's for the next quarter. Es for el próximo trimestre. ¿Cuál es el problema? ¿Un carro? ¿Usted quiere un carro?
Chief, please come up.
So, the city of Calexico has not bought a vehicle for the Calexico Police Department since 2007. Every car that we've had, we bought it through asset forfeiture and everything. Last set of cars, that we have an old fleet that we bought in 2011, and it's outdated. The mobile data computers don't work. The radios are malfunctioning. We're spending a lot of money fixing these cars. I'm gonna end up downing probably about 6 to 7 cars right before summertime because I'm spending too much money. I'm probably, I already spent this fiscal year probably about $45,000 to $60,000 in vehicle repairs. If I buy one car, so one car by one car, it's gonna be added to an RFP so I can purchase 4 cars. The reason I need to make and get this, the council, if they're gonna approve this tonight, is that police cars, we have to order them, specially made through Ford or whoever we buy them through. They build them, and if they open up a window, let's say for instance they open it up in March, they close it by the end of March, we won't get those cars in till probably September, October. If we wait and we miss that window of opportunity, the next window of opportunity for them to build cars won't be brought up till September, October, which means we probably won't get them till the end of the beginning of next year, calendar year. What happens there is the fact, number one, I got new radios coming in for police cars. Yes, we do. But some of that money was already budgeted for my radio councils. I was saving my money for radio councils. Those radio councils serve the fire department and myself for dispatch. And so we needed to do that. Then the state of California mandated that we go encrypted. That way that we don't give information and it gets stolen identity theft. So they mandated us to go that. So we opened up an opportunity, and that's the reason we brought it last time. My goal here is to get 4 police cars. When we get the new radios, I want to be able to put them on those new police cars instead of putting them in the old ones and then having to pay them to take them out and reinstall them into the newer cars if we get them later on. So I understand is the liability of having a police car is not working right. I mean, and I have my guys complaining. We do forms every day with the vehicle check forms. It's unfortunately I'm spending too much money. I'm gonna end up downing it. I'm only gonna have probably 6 good police cars on patrol right before the summertime because I don't plan on putting more money in those cars. That's the reason I'm asking for 1 because I want to do an RFP for at least 4 because I have impact fees that I can use.
We have mechanics too.
Those cars are beyond.
What is the most important, the fire department or fire police?
Ms. Romo, you're not going to put me to go against another department.
Le acabamos de dar a usted muchas cosas.
Excuse me?
Ya le acabamos de dar mucho equipo. Sigue el departamento de bomberos.
Ms. Romo, the dispatch councils cost $400,000 and it serves both departments, and we're paying for that cost. So
for me, public works is most important. Okay.
Madam Mayor, a question for both Police Chief Gerardo and City Manager Figueroa, one by one. I'll start with Figueroa first, and just to foreshadow what's going to happen with item number 16. This money, this 100, and I'm talking about now item number 16, just very briefly, connected to what we're talking about right now for that specific purpose, so it stays on topic. This 101,000, you figured out that you could get it from the CFD. So we're going to have this 101,000 separate that is going to be up to our discretion. Is that correct? Del 16. Is that going to be able to come out of the CFD?
I just want to make sure that we don't lose focus. There's an opportunity that item 16 will be funded from the same source as the previous item that we discussed.
Yes, okay. So that means that we can do both. This $101,000 that is going to be freed up because Figueroa was able to get it from the CFD, he will tell you about it once he gets to item 16. It means that we can get the restrooms out of the cannabis, and then we can get the police car out of this Measure 8 funding, and then we can all be happy. And my question to Gerardo would be, say that we got the police car and not the restrooms. What is the probability, just in a wild guess, and you look at these call logs every day, what's the probability that shiny new police car is going to be called for an assault or a rape resulting from defecation in the public in the public way downtown?
That's a good question, Mr. Dena. I don't know what the probability is because we are a very lucky community where, and it goes to this, I don't like to say, I'm gonna jinx it, but if you look at our uniform crime reporting, our violent rapes or rapes in public areas are 0. I mean, if the rapes that we took and we've taken in the past have been people that know each other, it's acquaintance rapes, but not when it comes to we're having a serial rapist or someone who's going to get raped out of that. And that's what gets reported. I don't know if anything goes unreported, but what gets reported to us, and then I work really good with Miss Margaret Salsa at the Shore Helpline, and she would report stuff to me if these things were happening. So the probability to me, it's very, very minimal. You know, like I said, I hope I don't jinx ourselves because right now, you know, we've been pretty lucky on that.
Just for clarification,
Okay.
and to provide a little bit more scope to Councilmember Ureña, the Measure H funds alluded to that are going to be coming down the agenda are specifically set aside for the capital improvement program. So that would be the only caveat. They're already budgeted for the capital improvement program for Public Works through Measure.
Miguel, is possible to speak with Liliana en el chief de los bomberos, porque el señor ya habló.
Madam Councilwoman Romo, members of the council, if you folks have direct questions to staff members, they have my direction to come up and answer them if you so wish.
A mí me gustaría escucharlos.
Madam Mayor, can I say something?
I think it's clear.
Can I go one real quick? You know, to be in compliance, the voters of Calexico voted for Measure K and specifically voted for what it says there.
Yes.
So be in compliance. It would be sort of disingenuous disservice, and I understand everybody's concern. It's getting late, but it's real simple what it's for. Stay within that scope, and we're okay, just because the people voted for that.
Could you remind me of the scope?
Well, right here, it says right here, Measure K. I'll read it to you. Police and emergency response, parks, youth services, and street repair. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so services,
So,
they fall
That's for
under that
Measure
scope,
K,
or-
that's for,
I
that's
mean,
it.
all of it falls under this scope.
Obviously, nobody knew the pandemic was going to get here, and I know we're all having issues,
Yes,
but
to be
there's
clear-
funds somewhere else.
To be clear, does the restroom fall under that scope? Yes
It
or
just
no?
says here.
Pues sí, ¿verdad? And what's your
okay,
comment
so
about?
why don't we just move
Yeah.
forward with
Sure. I will make a motion to
With the-
approve the cannabis business tax for radios, uniforms, and the rest to Public Works. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor
wait a minute. You're making a motion,
to approve. Yes, I'm making the motion.
no,
What do you mean, no?
Está distribuyendo el dinero.
They made a motion, we'll vote, and just go on with the next motion.
excuse me?
He made a motion, we need to vote.
There's a motion on
Okay,
the floor.
the motion that he's making is not to approve the cannabis business tax revenue
No,
usage.
it
Of
is.
course not, because he's included the restrooms, yeah.
Excuse me, my motion, and I will clarify my motion. My motion is to approve the cannabis business tax revenue. It is to designate those funds to uniforms.
No,
for the-
¿qué, señor Moreno?
It is for
No,
uni-
excuse me, abogado. Varias veces estoy viendo al señor Moreno a ver a la señora mayor diciéndole no o sí a lo que tiene que decir. Discúlpeme.
Sí,
Ya
y
varias
pasa
veces
todo
lo
el
estoy
tiempo,
viendo,
está
ya
trampa,
me estoy molestando.
Ya,
Between
okay,
the
ya.
three of them.
No, no,
But-
discúlpeme.
There is a motion on the
Cuando
floor.
no le cierre el ojo, le dice que sí o le dice que no. Por favor, hay más respeto en esta mesa.
There is a motion on the floor, Madam Mayor, and I was
Okay,
reiterating my
you
motion.
made your motion, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay, now moving on.
Come on, ¿de veras?
Make-
A ver, Moreno, ¿qué quiere?
Mayor Arriola Fernández,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno,
No.
Councilmember Ureña,
Aye.
Councilmember Romo,
Ay,
Councilmember Garcia.
no,
Motion does not pass.
Okay. So,
pues está igual usted que todos.
now, going back,
Come on.
approve cannabis business tax revenue
Una mesa de
usage.
3.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Do I have a second?
Excuse me, what motion are we voting on?
Who was second?
No sé qué es la moción.
No sé qué es la moción.
Madam City Clerk, for clarification purposes to staff, what we need to know is specifically what your motion will pay for.
Okay. So we're approving the items that you presented to us.
The items that were presented are a wish list of needs from the departments. There is a set amount of money that we can use right now. The itemized items in the items that I briefed with you supersede the available amount right now. That is why I asked, for example, my departments to be specific and break down the elements, so you folks have the opportunity to pinpoint specifically what you wish to cover.
So thank you. So I'll make a motion to approve one police car for Chief Gerardo.
Oh my gosh.
In addition, 10 units for the radios.
The radios,
And I will put the wild gear, because in case they respond to the wildfire, they have to have that gear. And then last, the bulletproof, because sometimes when they respond to emergencies, they need to be protected. Those are 3 items I make a motion. And plus the police car.
Okay, at this point right now, and to stay true in this case, because the motion I'm hearing is for items within the fire chief's list to be considered.
Yes.
I think it's important that the chief himself tells us what items are our priority for his department.
All right, good evening, City Council, Honorable Mayor, and the staff. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up here and give some explanation behind our list that we've submitted to the city manager for your guys' approval. So on the list is just like Mr. Figueroa said, this is a wish list. This is a list of equipment that is in need and much need at the fire department. We understand that now we're not able to get everything we always wanted, right? And we understand that on these items that we have here presented are the immediate needs. These are the ones that cannot wait. These are the immediate needs. And that's why we're so quick with the actual numbers, because these are items that we've been trying to budget for years, and that's why we were able to have an accurate dollar amount for these. This is something that's urgent. It goes back to firefighter safety. It goes for obvious, which is, in the end of the day, is your guys' employers. In order for us to do our job safely, to provide service to the citizens, we do need this equipment. So more importantly, the brush gear. This is the brush gear that we use, like Mr. Rodon said, for the wildland fires, but not only for the wildland fires out of the county, out of our county, for the wildland fires in the mountains, but we use this a lot within the city. We use this for small trash, rubbish fires. A lot of our abandoned areas have grass and brushes, and this is the equipment that we use that is not so bulky as to exasperate our firemen from fighting those kind of fires, right? So we have that one item. The other item is our structural protective gear. That's the stuff that we use when we're entering inside of a building that's on fire or vehicles, right? This equipment, the standard is for every firefighter to have 2 sets of it, right? And the reason for it is cancer preventiveness. Once you go to a house fire, you get all the toxins, all the smoke on you. You're supposed to take it back to the station, clean it off, and have your other set ready to go in the event that you need it. We haven't been able to do that for many years. This will bring us up to the standard of safety. That's something that we've been lacking for many years. Another part of the list is on there is obviously radio communications. This is something that has been an item at the fire department for many years. The amount that I'm asking for is obviously not the complete list, but I understand the amount of money that we have available. With this initial 10 radios that we're purchasing, that should get us to a point where we're more at a controlled and safe way of business for the firefighters. There's also some thermal imaging cameras. These are the cameras that we use when we go inside a house fire to look through the smoke, find the hidden fires in the walls. That's something that we haven't purchased. And I can't even tell you the last time we purchased one of those. So every item on this list is essential.
It's an urgency.
Is essential. On the
Fire Chief, to put things into perspective for the council's sake, given the current motion on the floor right now, that would leave $74,889.23 for what was shared in terms of the fire department. So just for the sake, all of us have the elements here. And for the sake of the chief, it's important to know how much of a balance there would be.
Right. One last, couple last comments on this. One of the things you guys have here is for the ECG monitors. That's the cardiac monitors that we use when we're checking our patients for having heart attack or heart conditions, right? This money is not to purchase any new equipment. This is monies to refurbish and fix these monitors and bring it up to a better standard. So it's not, I'm not buying a brand new monitor. It just gives me the ability to say, hey, this is broken, can you please fix it for me? That's what that money is for right there. Like I said, just thank you for just, for considering all these things that we have here. We know the decision's not easy and it could get clouded. Just at the end of the day, just remember that my job, the police job, is to serve the community. And our second job is to make sure that our personnel go home safely at night. That's why you see on this list, it's all life safety equipment.
Thank you very much.
I'd be happy to answer any questions if we have any.
¿Tienes que pagar el carro de la policía completo? ¿No lo puedes dar un enganche e irlo pagando para el otro quarter? ¿Para el otro trimestre? ¿Para que alcance el dinero y todos tengan?
So, amigos, ya estamos.
Sí.
We're good?
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
So the reason I need to know, how much money we're going to receive, if we're going to receive anything, is because I need to do an RFP. And my instructions, and I work with the finance director, is do an RFP, that's going to ask for either lease or purchase. And then once we get that, we're going to bring it to city council to see what is good, it's better for us as a city. What is going to save us money, what's going to be more bang for our buck. I'm not going to get half that money and go buy a car right now. We don't have to pay for that car until start paying to a car to 30 days after we receive the car. The only thing that I need to know is, can we do an RFP? Is this money going to be budgeted now so we can go ahead and do the RFP to order the car? I can't go and buy the car off the lot right now. I mean, there's not a police package vehicle out there, so it's got to be made for us. And that's why we need approval now, or we need to know right now, okay, you know what, you can count on this much for a police car, and then by the time we order it and everything, 30 days after receiving the car, our first payment is due, whether we lease it or we purchase it. I mean, it's...
Lease two cars.
And that's my thing is depending what the RFP brings us, it's worth us doing, but we need to know, can we count on this money in case we can't lease it? If we can lease it, we might be able to get two cars out of it.
I think the question was on financing options. Is there a way that we can use credit so that when the next quarter comes, if you can get the car on credit now so that we can pay for it next quarter?
Yes.
Because obviously, I mean, there's people defecating on the street.
So what happens with the way the city government, the way we work is, we need approval and we need to know is this money available? Are we going to get this money? Because later on, if let's say for instance, you don't approve none of this and you give the money to buy crayons for all the school district, and when you get the bill, when it comes, you're going to say, well, you know what, there's no money for it. We need to know is this money is going to be set aside for a police car. So when we get the RFP and we award the bid, we have something to fall back on when they start billing us.
I'll ask the question to City Manager Figueroa then. Is there any way that we can self-borrow from this cannabis fund to pay for that car in a future quarter?
Unfortunately, I don't know for a fact what's going to be the revenue for the following quarters. And since I have that unknown, it makes it hard to commit to something that I just don't know how much money I'm going to have.
Well, I would disagree just a little bit, because the reason we have this much cannabis money right now is because people are smoking more cannabis because of the pandemic. So if anything, this is one of the very few funds that you'll have about the same, if not more, next quarter.
and thank you for bringing that up so I can be clear. The dollar amount that you have here is 3 years
Oh, I see.
accumulated,
I see.
because our operators have not been going up as fast as we would want. So right now we're up to 4 operators, some of them that are just starting off. Therefore, as you can see, the breakdown of the 147, you see that technically there was minimum amount of money collected in 2019.
That makes sense. Okay, so last question then. When, since the 101,000 is constrained to capital improvement, are the restrooms, do they fall under that category? Can they be financed through Measure H capital improvement?
The problem with that is that the capital improvement fund has a list of projects that are approved by council when the budget gets adopted. That project specifically would have to be in that specific list of projects, so it could be covered with that money.
But there is a way where we could theoretically vote to put it at the top of the list, correct?
It would basically...
Like a budget amendment?
It would basically, the answer is yes, it would basically just take away from something else in that list.
Okay, then I really don't have a problem with this. I would feel more comfortable if I could get the commitment from council that we would put public restrooms at the top of the list for Measure H, and then you can spend this money freely. That way we can all be happy.
There's just one more thing that I do want to say.
Yes?
The thing is that when you have a capital improvement program, that part of that money that's used, aside, like for example, Measure H, you have money that's bonded towards that program. And when we bond, we are providing a disclosure on everything that's in that program and how that's going to get paid for, if there's other sources of funding involved. So on that one, I would just be careful, because I would have to check with bond counsel, just to make sure that we would not be infringing anything.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, just for the sake of the argument and basic, 73,000 for he gets a patrol car, and the remaining of the 147, whatever it is, Mr. Favila can use
Fire
it
department.
accordingly to whatever he can get in the list he provides. That'll be almost half right there, half and half,
You can make that motion.
right? I mean, that's fair, because,
That's fair.
you know.
Okay, you want to make the motion?
Oh,
I want to clarify something. 73,000 is just a number they gave me if we buy. It might be less, because I only asked for one car. So it won't be more than 17,000. So my thing is, allow this, but if it's less, then that money can go.
back to him to purchase the other stuff remaining.
I mean,
That's simple.
Just trying to get that.
Can we move on?
That's
It's already
simple.
9:20. So, do you have a motion?
Can I get
I
a quick
think-
clarification on the motion, please?
I guess Mr. Ureña had agreed with me, right? I mean, we make a motion.
You make a motion?
I make a motion to give Chief 73,000, what he requested, right? It might be less, and the remaining can go to Chief Avila. Right.
Can, as a city manager, can I make a request to this body?
Yes.
If you look at the list from Public Works, the equipment that is being requested is to be a little bit more effective and efficient in the services that our laborers provide. Knowing that we have a motion on the floor right now, is there an opportunity where you folks can consider this item within the next round of monies, just because I know firsthand the positive impact that this would have on the Public Works Department, specifically on the work that our laborers do out on the field on a day-to-day basis.
Definitely, yes.
And just to be clear on the dollar amount that he's asking for, he's talking about the $4,000, 4,000, just for that, 4,000 for Public Works, just for that equipment. If you would like to
I agree.
amend your motion.
So that motion stands, right? You second that?
Yeah, that was just my, that was just
But I mean,
my-
he's
my-
going to second.
I do not second that motion.
You don't?
I do not second that motion.
Excuse me. What is your recommendation, Miguel?
There's a motion on the floor right now.
Uh-huh.
There's a second, if I'm not mistaken. There's no second yet?
Okay. Do you second it?
Let me hear the motion again,
What is the motion?
The motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Pro Tem, the motion is to cover the $73,000 that were identified by the Calexico Police Chief and the remaining balance to go to the fire department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
What I am seeking as a city manager, as a recommendation for the next quarter, is for this body to consider some of the equipment and tools that are going to improve the efficiency of our labor.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay. Okay.
No, that's just my statement.
Second. I need a second. Moreno?
Yes, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Adriana Fernandez?
Aye.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor Adriana Fernandez. Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
No.
Councilmember Romo?
No.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay. It is already 9:25. Do you want to continue or we cut it off at 9:30?
If I can request that we continue, you have a couple of items that are important for the sake of city business.
Entonces, en 3 meses le vas a dar dinero a Public Works.
That is a decision that this body will take.
No, yo te pregunté la recomendación y tú dijiste que dentro de 3 meses.
What I did was give a recommendation. As a city manager, it's up to this body to make a determination.
Qué
Okay.
crimen.
Okay, so moving on to item 15, authorize the city manager to sign agreement of professional service with Jeff Katz Architecture for architectural, what is it, engineering services for Heber Park expansion project.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, this item pertains to an item for which we were awarded $8.5 million out of the park bond to build out Heber Park, which is going to have a number of amenities for our community. At this point right now, the Public Works Department took the lead and initiated the procurement process for which, specifically for architectural services, we received 7 proposals for which an evaluation committee was formed. That evaluation committee took upon the task to review the proposals, of which 2 were deemed complete with all the requirements in the RFP. As a result of that, both applicants had the opportunity to give a presentation and expose their proposal. And as a result of that practice, there is a recommendation from staff, based on that evaluation, to award this contract to Jeff Katz Architecture for the services for Heber Park.
So move.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Who seconded?
Motion by Councilmember Romo, second by Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Councilmember Romo.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Moving on to 16, authorize city manager to sign change order number 11 with Tom Watson Industries in the amount of $101,954,042 for sport lining at Adrian C. Cordova Memorial Park, project number 2020-400.
For the record, Madam Mayor, this is change order number 1. The purpose and the reason why this change order is being brought to your attention is so we can include 3 specific things that are outlined in page 2 of your staff report that have to do with electrical conduit installation. Again, this is related to the scope, to the design that was approved for the Adrian C. Cordova Park. The only item that I would request that be changed compared to the fiscal impact would be that the fiscal impact be to the CFD. I went that length to describe and explained the CFD in the previous item regarding Adrian C. Cordova Park. At this point right now is for us to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure. Like you folks know, this project has been delayed for many years. I'll give you a quick example. If we are to RFP out a specific service, for example, the restrooms, we could be looking at a delay anywhere between 9 to 12 months. And again, this is important for our community and for you folks as our elected officials to know. At this point right now, the CFD has a positive balance of $900,000. Like I said, the CFD collects average on an annual basis $219,000. One of the things that our auditors have been very strict with us is to make sure that if our CFDs have a positive balance, that we need to expend the money for what they're intended for. What this would pay for falls under the description of the allowed expenses that I read on the CFD. At the same time, it shows that the city is putting the money to use for what it has to be put to use. At this point right now, I won't elaborate more because I touched on matters related to this item previously, but if you have any comments or questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Okay, the first is money CFD, and second is very necessary, Miguel, ¿verdad? It's very, very, very urgent.
Again,
necessary.
this goes, since we're piecemealing this project, you guys are going to continue to see different pieces come to your attention because we can only pay for them when the money's available.
Okay.
So, to answer your question, Ms. Romo, the reason why the agency that got awarded the original contract for the lighting is submitting this change order is because they identified something that has to be addressed for the sake of the following steps of the project.
Yes.
So would you need a motion to approve this, but coming out of the CFP?
I think the motion can be approved with what I just explained, which incorporates that change.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve this with the amendment that it comes out of the CFD as opposed to Measure H.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mayor
Can
Lola
I-
Fernandez?
Can I comment on that? So again, we go back to spending $100,000 on this project, additional, right? That brings the total down to $857,000 from an original of $755,501 that was approved during the summer. So was this an oversight when this was planned?
This is simply something that came up as a result of the work that Tom Watson is doing. They identified this as something that should be addressed right now, given the future phases of the project. If it's categorized as an oversight, I would not be sure because at the end of the day, let's not forget that a lot of money was saved because a lot of the design work was done in-house. And with that said, a lot of the things that come up when you piecemeal a project like this one is that elements like this can surface, and this is the case. And it's like I said, the 101, the $101,000 that we reference is specifically so the three elements that are described here can be incorporated into the work Tom Watson is doing right now.
Okay, so you're piecemealing. What other piecemeals can we expect?
Well, I can share with you that we still have to pave a parking lot in there, that we still need to do and do the actual construction of the fields. As you know, we have the fencing done. So it's just the whole project, as it was designed, has to be done. And the way you do that is that with the limited monies that we've been able to get through the CFD and Measure H, we've been able to fund it.
You know, I would prefer to sit down and analyze this and see what else we have to pay. Because when we did this, you know, back in the summer, we were thinking we're paying $750,000, you know, for lighting. And now we're coming back and, you know, we have to do this whether it was an oversight, whether we didn't plan, whether it was done in-house. Thank you for that, appreciate it. There was some money saved, but now we're paying for it. So let's do an assessment. Let's do an assessment as to what else. I mean, that's what I would suggest, as to what else, what other potential expenses. Or let's sit down with the contractor also. Let's see what else. Because now we have this. What's going to be tomorrow?
And again, Councilmember Garcia, again, I appreciate your comments. Do you know that the change order specifically for
I
the
understand it's
installation-
scoreboard and parking lot.
No. It's specifically for the installation
The
of the
conduit
sport
and-
lighting for
yes.
3 baseball fields, 1 soccer field, and 1 basketball court.
Correct.
And this is specifically just for the lighting project, nothing else.
Yes, I understand that, but again, if you look at these things also, every change order has an open type of clause, exclusions, permits and fees, bonds, IIDs, concrete encasement, all these things. So I just want to have a good handle of this, these things. And I know I came in and I admit, I have to get educated on this project also, because I want to make sure that we're accounting for every dollar and we're getting our return on the investment, because here we are talking about how to distribute funds from different sources, how to maximize that impact. So we're trying to piecemeal also things that we do for, our own departments, our own people, right? But for others, we're like, okay, you can have it. It's coming from the CFD. I don't think we're being, congruent. So let's analyze and let's see what else can.
One thing that's worth sharing also with the community is that when you design a project of this magnitude, you get the input of partners. For example, the IAD is a partner that has a say in this project. Some of the things they recommend need to be factored in, but they increment the cost of the project. So I do want to be clear that it's not, some of the times it's not a City of Calexico reason as to why the prices on a project like this go so high. We need to factor in and consider the input of others that are going to make the project whole through the standards that we also need to comply with the district.
One question just to go to the, if I may, one question to City Manager. When we discussed this in your office at the agenda briefing, you said that this had some urgency, that there might be not approving this could lead to some added cost. Could you refresh my mind on that?
Absolutely. So, and by all means, I mean, we're going to follow the direction that this body takes. Obviously, our responsibility is to share with you the elements behind some of these items. At this point right now, since this is something that's identified by Tom Watson, and they're doing their due diligence by letting us know. So what's going to happen right now is that's going to be, the lighting work from Tom Watson is going to be put to rest, so I can follow up on the recommendations that this body is giving me. And like Mr. Garcia mentioned, if he wants an assessment, I'll be more than happy to work with my Public Works Department to deliver that. But at the moment, what's going to happen is that we're just going to put a stop on the work Tom Watson is doing.
That didn't answer my question. My question was a little bit more specific. So, item number 13 had approved the actual scoreboards. Item number 16 is asking not for scoreboards, but for conduit systems, correct?
Yes, that's how the item reads.
Okay, so if we don't approve the conduit systems right now, how does that, I still wasn't clear on what impact that's going to have to not put the conduit.
From what I'm gathering here from the feedback, what that would entail is we would have to assess if this change order is not included to see if it's feasible for Tom Watson to continue their work. Without that,
yes.
But it's also my responsibility to come back and tell you that if we exclude this change order, how much it's going to cost in the future to do this.
The future is the problem. Okay, I have a question. who was the engineer in this project?
My understanding, I mean, that's a
Who was?
question, Ms. Felomir, can you shed some light on that question, please?
Ujú. Es el que omitió esto. ¿Qué ingeniero hizo esto? Oh my gosh.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The engineer that did this, as Mr. Figueroa has mentioned, this project has been piecemealed because of the funding. I remember probably 8-10 years ago when an assessment was done, the whole total project cost was about $9,000 to $10,000 from beginning to end. Unfortunately, we didn't have those funds, so that's why we've been piecemealing it throughout the years. The engineering that was done in-house several years ago. We have engineers techs that assist us with the project, so they've been helping us do the engineering portion of the project.
Ms. Romo, the engineering work was done in-house within the engineering team.
Correct. We don't have a specific engineer for this project.
We've had multiple engineers provide their input throughout the years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. What I would like is go back and revisit.
There's a motion and a second on the floor.
There was a,
We have to vote on that first.
we have to vote, you know, there was
I'm
a first and second.
Were you saying something? I didn't hear you.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. We have to vote on that first.
Yeah.
We have to vote on the existing motion before we move on to another
Yes.
motion.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
In the
that's how
floor?
meetings work.
Yeah.
No sé por
No.
qué.
Mayor Adrian Fernandez,
No.
Mayor Pro Moreno,
No.
Councilmember Ureña,
Aye.
Councilmember Romo,
No.
Councilmember Garcia.
No.
Motion does not pass, 4-1.
Okay. Now, what I would like to see is what your recommendation was.
No, I think the recommendation
Oh.
came from Councilman Garcia.
¿Cuál es
Yes.
la recommendation?
To go back and, you know, reassess this project, right? Look at what, please meaning, look at what we can potentially expect also, so we can have a plan. I know a lot of that engineering work was done in-house. Again, thank you for that. You know, probably at that time we were able to save money. But what I want to see also is that if we can foresee any other change orders, any other expenses, sit down with perhaps the contractor, you know, and talk about this with him also. You know, whatever needs to be done, just to get a handle on this thing. Because, again, we have this in front of us, and there is history behind it that we don't know. And just to approve, just to say yes, you know, or no, I mean, I don't want to do that. I want to be informed. I want to have the facts so I can make an informed decision. I understand that by us saying no, maybe, you know, it will cost more. But then also, you know, what else is there? So just getting ourselves more informed, talking to the contractor, see what else is there, and have a better handle on this. And we can come back to this.
I just want to be specific for the sake of Ms. Falomir and myself. Right now, you referenced that you want an assessment. You said project. Are you referring to the entire Adrian Cordova Park project, or specifically
At least for the
item
light.
pertaining to Tom Watson?
Yeah, yes, you know, for Tom Watson.
Okay.
And actually, I want to, we're focusing on the change order. If you could
Change
talk to,
order? No.
that's mainly the.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I just want to recommend that at least item number 1 be approved, because if item number 1 is not approved, therefore we won't have lighting at the Cordova Park.
What do you mean, item number 1?
Item number 1 on the change order, which is this installation of a conduit system as per the Imperial Irrigation District, it's $53,731.22.
But I think that falls into what Councilman Garcia said.
Yeah,
that he wants a
it's
full
all of it.
assessment.
You know, we can't just take a piece of that item and say, you're gonna put this piece. You know, so I think it's just analyzing this whole item. Unless the council decides to go and say, well, you know, we're gonna take a piece by piece.
Yes, but the item number 1 is an urgency item, because if not, then Tom Watson cannot move forward in providing, continuing the electrical work.
You're talking about the installation?
On the description.
Yes,
the
item number
installation.
1 on the change order has 3 items, but item number 1 for $53,731.22, it's an urgent item. What happens when we do projects is that we submit the appropriate applications to the Imperial Irrigation District, because like Mr. Figueroa mentioned before, we need, of course, the lighting, the electrical from them. So Tom Watson and the city submitted the application to connect. Then the IID comes and tells us, okay, in order for us to connect to the grid, these are the improvements that need to be done. Therefore, that's why Tom Watson is requesting, gave us a proposal for that system alone for $53,000.
Madam Mayor, at this point, is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah.
There is? Okay. Just question.
Yeah, the motion was to
Es que es importante.
go back and reassess this item, you know. Yes, I did. And then, I don't know if there was a second, you know. No, there was no second.
Who made the second?
No, there was no second.
Nobody's made second? I'll second that.
So, we're back to, Aye.
Mayor Adriana Fernandez?
aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
No.
Councilmember Romo?
No.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Moving on to city council appointments to the following commissioners, boards, and committees.
Madam City Clerk, can you please take the lead on this item? It pertains to several of our commissions for which there are appointments that need to be made for a majority vote.
Okay, due to the fact that this has taken longer than the 45 days following the election, we require that there be a motion for the appointments, and there has to be a vote by the council, the entire council.
So do we each just say the names and then they vote, or do we all just say the person that we plan to appoint and then we vote in the end, or how?
We should probably take them each
It's more
individually.
better, no?
Each individually. So we have one appointment for the Arts and Historical Commission. We could probably
I
do.
have 2, no? ¿A cuántos? We have 2.
I would like to make a motion, since we're starting
No,
on
okay.
on A.
For the Arts and Historical Commission,
I would like to make a motion to approve Alberto Martinez.
Luis Hernandez for arts, for myself.
I'm sorry, you interrupted my motion. I was making a motion for Alberto Martinez to the Arts and Historical Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Now you get to call the vote.
Oh, yes.
Mayor
It's
Adriana
better.
Fernandez.
Actually, I have discussion on this item, actually, if I may.
Oh, okay. Okay,
I do have some discussion on it very briefly, if I may.
I said aye.
I'm asking to say something very briefly, if I may. Discussion on the motion.
What was the question?
I'm asking for the floor. I want to make a brief comment on the motion.
He wants to make a comment on the motion. I mean,
Yes, okay. So the reason I am making the motion to appoint Alberto over Luis, I've checked both of their qualifications. Both of them have master's degree, both of them have extensive backgrounds in their art and historical work. They're both very qualified candidates. The only reason I would edge towards Mr. Martinez is because, quite simply, he was a board member at the Ivy LGBT Center. And if you guys remember, just a couple months back, we had a lot of homophobic attacks, not just towards me, but also towards Mr. Moreno. And I think this is a great opportunity to correct all of that hate and put a gay arts and historical commission, because we have to preserve that community, make sure that community is represented in the arts and history of the city.
Okay.
Gaby.
Okay, you seconded already?
Yeah.
Mayor Arriola Fernandez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Councilmember Romo. Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have 3 appointments for the Library Board of Trustees.
Okay, could I make a motion?
We have
I make a motion for
only
one
3, no?
for Rosario Duron.
Do we
Excuse
go
me,
one
Do you
by
want to
one
make
or-
another motion?
Oh,
Because it's only for 3 appointment and we have only 3.
yes. So do we make the 3 or
The
do we
three,
go
no?
one by one?
He said to go one by one. Can't we just go by
We
three?
can do either
Well,
way.
how many spots
So
do we
go by
fill?
Van
commission.
3 y tenemos 3.
Well, how many spots do we need to
It's
fill?
either way, it's just if people, if you can do, if you guys are in agreement with 3, then you
Vamos a
do it
tardar
all
I
at
mean,
once.
Okay.
we
But
just
if
do
you guys
what
have
we're
disagreement-
gonna
But do we need to
appoint
fill
and
3
move on?
spots?
Are you guys
Yes, right?
we're on agreement?
You can make the 3 appointments and vote
Yes.
at once.
Do it by
Okay.
one, yes.
Yeah.
So,
You,
for,
We have Ms. Rosario Duron at this point.
for the Library Board of Trustees. And
oh, for the same,
then I could, then could I say the other one I'm appointing? Or the other
No.
person that I'm considering?
can I make an appointment also on that?
No, we have to make a motion.
Do we do individual or are we going to take them to
That's
3?
what I'm saying, how-
No, so the motion, I know what you're trying to do, Madam Mayor, this is how you would do it. You make a motion to approve the 3 appointments, nomás di sus nombres, and then ask for a second, and then we vote.
Yes.
That's exactly
That's
what I was talking about.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so I appoint Maria E. Alarcón to the Library Board of Trustees.
3rd appointment.
Is that a motion?
I second.
Oh, there you go, okay, good.
And I appoint Luis Hernandez for Arts and Historic Board.
Madam Mayor, we just voted.
No,
no.
we're still on the
Doing
library.
Library Board of
Maybe
Trustees.
what we'll do is maybe
Maybe one on
the-
one.
you nominate.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it might be easier for one, or
One
you
by
make your
one.
nominations, and then once we know if there's 3, let's make a motion with the 3.
We have nominations right now for Rosario Duron and Maria Alarcón. We need one more nomination for the Library Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Excuse me, abogado. Aquí dice que necesitamos 3, ¿sí o no?
Yes.
Y aquí tenemos 3, no hay otro, no hay cuarto, no hay quinto,
Sí,
no hay
no,
2.
pero
O sea, ¿cuál es el problema? Son 3 ciudadanos que van a trabajar gratis. Lo que quiere decir es que si aquí ocupan 3 y aquí tenemos 3, pues tenemos que darle la oportunidad a estas 3 preciosas personas que se están anotando. ¿Para qué hacer una moción una por una? O sea, son 3 para 3. No entiendo.
Well, primero, we first talked about making a motion, well, we've gone back and forth.
Sí.
You can either do it way, but
Se
right now,
complican.
we talked about a motion with the 3 people, but then people started making individual motions.
Claro, somos
So-
3, nomás hay 3.
Wait, I think I know where we're getting lost here. So let's just put this clear. We just voted for Alberto Martinez to be on Arts and Historical. Is that
That
correct?
is done.
That's
That's
okay.
settled.
That's done. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
now we're on
okay.
Library Board of Trustees. What is the motion on the floor right now?
We have nominations. We have nominations for Rosario Duron,
Sí.
Maria Alarcón. We need a 3rd nomination, and then we can make the motion and a second to
okay.
get those 3 appointed.
That's it.
Okay, sounds good.
Simple as
Okay.
that.
So do I have a 3rd nomination?
Did they do Guadalupe?
Yo ya
Well,
sé, mi
yeah,
emoción
let's
es
just-
votar 3 para 3. Ya, yo no sé qué quieren
That's
hacer.
right. So
So
give the name that's left.
Están
Who's the
Give me the name
discriminando
that's
a una
left.
persona que está aquí.
What's her name? The lady that's left?
Ay, no, de veras voy a ir al baño, con permiso. Saqué estudiar las leyes.
So right now, we need one additional person.
Right.
And there's a name here, so.
For what? Do we have,
Yes, you have a 3rd one.
do we have one? Do you guys have one?
Guadalupe Espino, I think, did you have it?
There
Yeah.
you go.
Okay. Now, do I have a motion to appoint Rosario Duron, Maria Alarcón, and Guadalupe Espino? Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Moreno,
Second.
Second by Councilmember Garcia. Mayor de la Fernandez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Councilmember Romo is absent. Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now,
I would like to make a motion to approve Miguel Coronel and Jose Hinojosa to the Planning Commission.
And I will second that.
We only have one opening, I think, on the planning
We
commission.
have two.
for
For
the
planning?
arts.
Son
No,
dos.
for planning
Where-
now.
Where's that?
Now we're looking at planning.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I think that's an error.
Which is it?
Era
It's an error.
Jose Hinojosa and what was the other one? Miguel Coronel, which is the last one, yeah. Miguel Coronel. Miguel
For-
Coronel is
For-
the one
What is that for?
for planning.
Planning.
Yeah, let's get a clarification. I hear,
Oh, I see. So I will make a motion to approve Miguel Coronel to this planning commission.
Aye.
He made a motion. I need a second.
There's no second?
Second. Motion dies due to lack of second.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve Jose Hinojosa, Planning Department.
You have a second?
Second.
Mayor de la Fernandez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña.
Abstain.
Councilmember Romo is
Hinojosa.
Hinojosa for Planning Commission.
Planning Commission.
Tengo que ver. ¿Y cuál es la que está en la flor?
Planning Commission.
Sí, pero ¿qué es la
We have a motion on the floor to appoint Mr. Jose Hinojosa to the Planning Commission. We need,
José Hinojosa? Ah, nada más uno, que no son dos.
no, it was an error.
Ah, ok, ay.
Aye, okay. Councilmember Garcia, aye. Motion passes 4-1. And we have 4 appointments for the Parks, Recreation, Beautification, and Senior Services Commission.
Excuse me, ¿quién fue el segundo de Planning Commission?
No hubo segundo porque hicieron un error en la agenda. Solamente hay una posición.
Oh, excuse me, okay,
Ajá.
thank you. One, okay.
so it looks like there's four appointments to the Parks and Rec.
Yeah, did
Yes.
you read through the arts?
Yes, we did the arts first.
That was the first one.
For parks? Oh,
Arts.
parks. Okay.
Y ver al Alberto Martínez.
4 is, Gaby, that's okay, 4? 4 people. I have a motion to approve, ¿puedo o no? ¿Todavía no? Nominate a Nubia Martínez y Amanda Camacho. Y hay 2 que están aquí, Ángel de Dios y Jesse García.
Nominate.
Ángel de Dios no se puede porque tiene 17 años.
¿Tiene qué?
17 años.
So,
Raúl Gutiérrez Jr., Jesse García, Nubia Martínez, Amanda Camacho, son los que saqué de aquí.
Le pediría la...
Son 4. Nubia Martínez y Amanda Camacho.
Le pediría a la señora Romo no poner al Gutiérrez en su moción porque él tiene una aplicación para personal. Si puede
¿sí?
hacer una enmienda, no poner al Gutiérrez.
Ah, es que yo los saqué.
Jesse García.
Los saqué de aquí, de los papelitos.
Sí puede hacer la enmienda de su moción para remover al Gutiérrez.
Nomination.
No, ya nada más por 2, Nubia Martínez y Amanda Camacho, que los saqué de aquí.
Okay.
Councilmember Garcia has made a nomination for Jesse Garcia.
Okay.
4th nomination.
Jesse ya estaba él aquí, ¿no? ¿Qué? Yo me acuerdo de Jesse. Muy bien.
Yeah, there's no one else.
that's it.
Only 3 nominations. Do we have a motion?
A motion to approve?
second.
Second. Mayor Arreola Fernandez. Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. Councilmember Ureña.
Aye.
Councilmember Romo. Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have two appointments to the Personnel Commission.
Okay.
I'll nominate Mr. Gutierrez, Raul Gutierrez.
Raúl Gutierrez,
Second. No, yo lo confundí.
second nomination. For Personnel Commission.
And second. Okay.
Anybody have nominated?
We only have one nomination right now, Mr. Gutierrez. We need a second person to nominate.
Anybody have a plan?
Second.
Have any for
De
plan?
Raúl Gutiérrez, is only one person?
Nomás tenemos a una aplicación para persona.
Oh.
There's, nobody else has any
No one
nominations?
else has
Okay.
a
Do we have a
personnel
motion?
Motion to approve.
Second? Mayor Arreola Fernandez? Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes. Two appointments to the Sales Tax Advisory Committee, Measure H.
I'll nominate Hortensio. And I have a question for Attorney Campos. Is my dad, as a Heffernan Memorial trustee, able to serve on this commission? Measure H?
I think we determined that would be an official, it's elected, right, like a position.
It is an
yeah.
elected position.
Yeah, because one of our eligibility, you can't be an officer, an official.
Okay.
And that we would determine when you, specifically for elected office, and you would qualify as such.
Oh, that makes sense. So, just.
Yes or no?
Mi papá no puede, so just Hortensio.
Es elector official, ¿verdad?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Hortensia Armendariz, second. Si se puede, ¿no? Es la esposa de él.
Sí.
No voy a decir que luego digan que no.
Tenemos que hacer la moción para aprobar primero. So
Okay.
I'll
pensé
make
que
a
lo habían
motion to
hecho tú.
approve
¿Qué
the.
no
Only
dijiste
one
tú,
nomination
Carlos,
for
sí?
this?
There's no more applications.
Okay. Your nomination, your motion?
So motion to approve Hortensio?
Second.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez? Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And we have one appointment to the Business Improvement District.
Nominate Mr. Louis Wong.
I second.
Mayor Arreola Fernandez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno?
Aye.
Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. One appointment to the Economic Development and Financial Advisory Commission.
I have a motion to approve Jesse Gallardo. Jesse Gallardo.
You need one more, right?
It's one appointment.
Oh.
One
Este es
appointment
el
only.
appointment.
For finance, I mean, for economic development and finance.
Economic Development, aquí aplico. Ajá.
It's one appointment only.
I have someone, but, Mr. Enrique Ramirez, so.
Okay, we have one motion right now to appoint Jesse
Oh,
Gallardo.
Sí, aquí están las de estas.
Do we have a
¿Veo
second?
otro? Planning, Economic, no, es uno.
Are we?
Motion dies due to lack of second?
I think there's some confusion here. Are we able to nominate someone that didn't turn in an application? Yes? Okay, sounds good. I'll second Romo's motion.
Okay. Mayor Arreola Fernandez? Mayor Pro Tem Moreno? Councilmember Ureña?
Aye.
Councilmember Romo?
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia?
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
So are all the commissioners in then, or are we still pending?
We are still pending.
Personnel.
Pending one person to the Personnel Commission
And one for
and one
Measure
person to the Parks, Recreation, Beautification, and Senior Services Commission.
Two.
And who did those fall under? Who did those fall under?
I have
What
one.
did they fall under?
Personnel.
It's at large.
Yeah, but,
So do we leave it for the next
future agenda items?
I have two brief ones. I'll give Attorney Campos the documentation from the Coachella Hero Pay ordinance, so we can adapt it and bring it to the council for Calexico. And then the second one was if we could have a discussion on road safety.
I just want to go back to my opening statement. If we can just work on putting the strategic planning session as soon as possible, that will be my future item.
Anybody else?
I don't.
Just for the sake of the item, Councilmember Garcia is referencing, I can give a quick update. That process is actually already ongoing. Right now, what I'm working on is determining the elements that will make up the strategic planning session per the needs that we have right now in the city.
Thank you.
I have two items.
On the procedure to get future items, we need obviously the mayor and 2 council members at a meeting as well.
Is that and or?
The mayor does have the ability on her own. Correct.
So is it mayor and 2 or mayor or
2
or
two
okay.
council members.
Got it. Romo, ¿me da segunda los items que propuse?
Yes,
Sí,
second.
ahí está.
I have two items too.
Yo le doy segunda a sus items.
Okay.
Y al item del García
Yes.
también.
Okay. For the ordinance for A-floor share, ¿cómo se dice? La ordenanza de cobro de piso por los contractors who come to Calexico to pick it up from workers.
She's talking about the farm worker center.
And then the new contract for orthopedic clinic, do you remember? Orthopedic clinic. La de orthopedic clinic, do you remember? Se quedó hace 2 juntas, ¿te acuerdas? Yeah.
And she also said about the orthopedic clinic.
Yeah, there's something pending so that item can come back to the agenda.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
No, I'm ready to say mine.
And then, I still have time, right? So, for a farm worker service center proposal. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything. Okay. Well, this meeting is adjourned at 10:07. Good night, everyone. Stay safe.